Chapter 1420. Pa! The crisp sound of a slap resounded above the imperial palace, which was particularly ear-piercing. Similarly, Lu Jejin's slap also shocked countless people. One must know. The one standing there was Emperor Hong. Not only was he the son of the previous emperor, but he was also the second-generation emperor. How could he dare to slap him in public? Emperor Hong himself was also stunned. The imperial preceptor was also shocked. Who was this person? He was actually so bold. The scene fell into a dead silence. Suddenly, Emperor Hong raised his head, stared at Lu Jejin gloomily, and roared, "You dare to hit this old man? Hitting you is considered light. Look at this world. How can there be a great-grandfather like you?" Lu Jejin snorted coldly, raised his arm, and slapped again. Emperor Hong's hostility overflowed, and killing intent burst out of his eyes. But at this moment, Qin Feiyong clenched his hands and shouted, "Old man, if you dare to move, I will let them kill everyone related to the Qin clan, and let the Qin clan have no descendants." Emperor Hong roared, "Evil creature, don't forget, you are also a member of the Qin clan. Didn't you just say that I am an abandoned child? What does an abandoned child have to do with your Qin clan?" Qin Feiyong sneered. Emperor Hong was furious. But at this time, Lu Jejin's slap landed solidly on his face, and a blood-red palm print quickly appeared. This was not a slap on the face, but on Emperor Hong's self-esteem. In front of everyone, he was slapped twice in a row. How could he face the world in the future? He was about to go crazy in his heart. But he didn't dare to move. He didn't dare to fight back. Because what Qin Feiyong had just said was like a ghost, floating in his ears. Kill everyone related to the Qin clan. If because of his impulse, the Qin clan had no descendants, even if he died, it would be difficult to atone for his sins. Pa! Lu Jejin's expression was cold. He raised his hand and slapped Emperor Hong's old face one after another. Not long after, Emperor Hong's entire face swelled up like a pig's head. However, he seemed to have become numb and did not make a sound. It's really sad that Qin Feiyong has a great-grandfather like you. In the end, Lu Jejin shook his head and sneered. Then, he turned around and swaggered back to Qin Feiyong. "Have you had enough? Did you vent your anger? Now that you've vented your anger, scram!" Emperor Hong roared at the few of them, hysterical. The mysterious madam looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, "Do you want the throne of the great Qin or not?" In other words, if Qin Feiyong wanted it, he would immediately help Qin Feiyong get it. What's the point of obtaining the throne? Can you reunite me with my mother? Qin Feiyong muttered to himself, his eyes full of disdain. From the very beginning, he had no interest in the throne. It was just that Emperor Hong and the others thought themselves infallible and insisted on accusing him of usurping the throne. The mysterious madam said, "Since Qin Feiyong is not interested in the throne, then let's disperse. Don't make some people look too bad. After all, he is the famous son of the Qin emperor." Although she said that, the mysterious madam was even more ruthless than Lu Jejin. As soon as her voice fell, she flashed and appeared in front of Emperor Hong. With a palm strike, she shattered Emperor Hong's qi and then kicked Emperor Hong's lower abdomen. "Ah!" Accompanied by a shrill scream, Emperor Hong smashed downwards like a meteorite. "Lord Emperor Hong!" The imperial advisor's face changed as he hurriedly chased after him. The guards in the palace, as well as the civil and military officials, all flew towards Emperor Hong, their faces full of worry. Boom! When Emperor Hong fell, there was a loud noise and a deep pit appeared on the ground. He was lying in the deep pit, his hair disheveled and his lower abdomen dripping with blood. He was in an extremely sorry state. "Your Excellency, are you all right?" The imperial advisor landed beside Emperor Hong and hurriedly helped Emperor Hong up. "Qin Feiyong, don't go too far. No matter what, he's still your elder. Even if you don't care about kinship, you still have to give face to the late emperor. After all, it was the late emperor who gave you the inheritance that made you who you are now. How can you collude with outsiders to harm the late emperor's own son?" The civil and military officials gathered around Emperor Hong and the imperial advisor, glaring at Qin Feiyong in the sky, feeling indignant. "Shut up! What do you all know? All these years, for the great Qin Empire, Qin Feiyong has done who knows how many things and suffered how many grievances. And you all? every day in the imperial city, living like a prince. I want to ask you, what qualifications do you have to criticize him? Old Qin said angrily. He's arrogant and despotic, lawless and out of control. What grievances can he suffer? The ones who are wronged are us. If it weren't for him messing around in the imperial city all day long, would we have to be on tenterhooks every day? All these years, every day felt like a year to us. Old Qin, you used to be highly respected in the great Qin Empire, but why can't you figure it out and collude with Qin Feiyang? Aren't you afraid of bearing an eternal infamy? Everyone roared angrily. As long as we can protect the country left behind by the late emperor, what's the harm in bearing an eternal infamy? Old Qin muttered, his eyes filled with determination. Protecting the great Qin Empire, protecting the people, was his belief. Qin Feiyang patted Old Qin's shoulder and comforted him. Don't worry, no matter when, I will fight alongside you. Old Qin smiled in relief. Fortunately, there was Qin Feiyang now, or else the great Qin Empire would really be hopeless. An old official stood at the head of the crowd, looked at Qin Feiyang and the others, and said, I won't let you hurt Lord Emperor Hong again, unless you step over my corpse. Then I'll fulfill your wish. The mysterious madam opened her mouth coldly, divine might pouring down like a waterfall. Emperor Hong pushed that old official away and roared, Don't hurt the innocent. If you have any resentment, come at me. The mysterious madam said disdainfully, How long can you last in your current state? With his qi crippled, Emperor Hong was already reduced to a cripple. If the mysterious madam really wanted to kill him now, she could do it with a wave of her hand. Lord Emperor Hong, the little prince has just succeeded the throne. Nothing can happen to you, or our great Qin will really be finished. Qin Feiyang, you're so ruthless, aren't you afraid of suffering the wrath of the heavens? I beg you, show mercy and let Lord Emperor Hong go. Our great Qin has already lost a wise emperor, we can't lose Lord Emperor Hong too. A group of officials cried out in grief. Some people even knelt on the ground, begging endlessly. Qin Feiyang swept his eyes over the group of people and asked, Who is the wise emperor that you all are talking about? A minister said, Of course it's you and His Majesty the White Sky's father. Haha. Qin Feiyang immediately laughed loudly and said mockingly, He can also be called wise? Want me to let Emperor Hong go, sure, but I want him to kneel down. Dream on. Emperor Hong roared angrily. Qin Feiyang, you're really going too far. What ability do you have to make Lord Emperor Hong kneel down to you? Moreover, he's your great-grandfather. Can you bear it? The people roared again and again. Qin Feiyang said, Of course I can't bear it, but I'm not making him kneel down to me either. I'm making him kneel down to his ancestor. I want to repent in front of his ancestor's statue. Emperor Hong said angrily, What did this old man do wrong, that I need to repent? Qin Feiyang said, You still haven't realized your mistake, you're really hopeless. I don't want to hear nonsense, just tell me, are you kneeling or not kneeling? Not kneeling. Emperor Hong said. Since that's the case, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. Thunder Leopard and the other two beasts appeared out of thin air, and said, Go, capture all the princesses, as well as the little prince. I will let the Qin clan have no descendants right now. No problem. Thunder Leopard laughed. Bastard, you really deserve to be cut into pieces. Emperor Hong was filled with grief and indignation. Qin Feiyang glanced at Emperor Hong, looked at Thunder Leopard and the other two beasts, and shouted, What are you standing there for? Hurry up and go. All right. The three beasts shouted and rushed down. Emperor Hong's gaze trembled as he hurriedly said, Don't, quickly call them back. I'll kneel right away. Finished. He gritted his teeth and knelt on the ground with a thud. Come back. Qin Feiyang said. How boring. When Thunder Leopard and the other two beasts heard this, they immediately pursed their lips and returned to Qin Feiyang's side in extreme displeasure. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a wave of battle qi surged out, pouring into the ground below. Boom! The ground suddenly trembled, and soil flew up. Not long after, a statue of a god holding a broken sword, which was more than 100 feet tall, condensed and stood in front of Emperor Hong. Looking at the statue, Emperor Hong felt sorrow from the bottom of his heart, and roared, Father, why did you give the inheritance to that unfilial bastard? The unfilial one is you. Qin Feiyong coldly snorted. His gaze turned to the imperial preceptor and said, "You also kneel down for me." "On what basis?" The imperial preceptor was stunned and immediately flew into a rage. Qin Feiyong sneered. "As a subject of great Qin, do you still need a reason to kneel to the late emperor? Or is it that the one who really wants to usurp the throne is you?" The imperial preceptor's body trembled, holding back the anger in his heart, and knelt beside Emperor Hong. Qin Feiyong had already made it so obvious, if he still didn't kneel, it would be equivalent to admitting it in disguise. One had to know. Right now, all the officials in the imperial court, the people of the imperial city, were all watching. An old minister said, "Since we have to kneel, then we will also kneel and accompany Emperor Hong and Lord Imperial Preceptor." "Yes. At this time, we must unite and face the outside world together." The other ministers nodded one after another, glaring at Qin Feiyong. "Up to you," Qin Feiyong said indifferently. Lu Xingchen shook his head and sighed. "I didn't expect that the wise Qin Batian would actually give birth to such a muddle-headed son like you. How laughable." "You are not allowed to blaspheme, father." Emperor Hong raised his head and looked at Lu Xingchen gloomily. "I don't care. In the future, don't let me hear you bully Brother Qin in the imperial capital again, or else it won't end so easily like today. Chang Yun, Chang Feng, let's go." Lu Xingchen sneered, waved his hand, and left with Mu Chongyun and Mu Chongfeng. Wang Su glanced at Qin Feiyong and the others, and also turned and left without saying a word. But the mysterious lady didn't leave. Lu Jejin didn't leave either. Emperor Hong looked at Qin Feiyong, Elder Qin, the mysterious lady, and Lu Jejin, and said, "Why aren't you scramming? I'll say it one last time, don't make a fuss in front of me. If you annoy me, even if the heavenly king comes down, he won't be able to save you." The mysterious lady looked down coldly at Emperor Hong and said, "You?" Emperor Hong blew his beard and glared. The mysterious lady smiled contemptuously, turned to look at Qin Feiyong, and said, "It's time to settle our accounts, there are too many people here, let's find a place where there's no one." Qin Feiyong's eyelids twitched. Chapter 14:21. Lu Jejin saw Qin Feiyong's nervousness and sent a sound transmission. "Little cousin, don't be afraid. Although the power behind her is very strong, she is now alone. With me and old man Qin here, she wouldn't dare to do anything to you." "That's right. If she dares to touch you, this old man will make sure she doesn't return." Old man Qin thought. Hearing the words of the two, Qin Feiyong heaved a sigh of relief. He glanced at Emperor Hong and the others, then looked at the mysterious lady and said, "Let's go to the restaurant." It was definitely impossible for him to bring this dangerous woman to the castle or the ancient tower. "Wait. How long do we have to kneel?" Emperor Hong said angrily. "Kneel until I'm satisfied. If I find out that you're cheating, then don't blame me for being impolite." Qin Feiyong snorted from his nose, then turned around and left with the mysterious lady and Lu Jejin. "Evil creature." Emperor Hong was so angry that his beard was blowing and his eyes were glaring, his body trembling crazily. As the second-generation emperor of the Great Qin dynasty and also Qin Feiyong's great-grandfather, he was actually forced to kneel in public. How could he have any face left? Seeing this, the imperial advisor hurriedly sent a sound transmission. "My lord, a wise man does not fight when the odds are against him. Now, please endure it and stop shouting at them." "When did you become so spineless?" Emperor Hong glared at the imperial advisor angrily, then looked at Qin Feiyong's back and muttered, "I hope you can continue to be so arrogant." To him, what he had experienced today was the greatest humiliation in his life. Therefore, other than hatred, there was nothing else for Qin Feiyong. How wonderful! In the distant void, Wang Zicheng clapped his hands and laughed. To be able to turn danger into safety like this, young lord's methods are indeed not something we can compare to. The big barbarian bull sighed. Back then, when they followed Qin Feiyong, they were all forced and unwilling. But now that they looked back, being able to follow Qin Feiyong was also a good thing. As long as this person did not die, he would definitely have astonishing achievements in the future. They could also benefit from it. First District. Fragrant Moon Inn. Qin Feiyong and the other three arrived at the gate one after another. The waiter of the restaurant immediately welcomed them with a flattering smile. Young Master Qin, Old Man Qin, and these two lords, please come in. In the meantime, the surrounding people also retreated to the side, as if they had seen a devil, and kept quiet out of fear. The street in front of the fragrant moon brothel instantly fell into a dead silence. The mysterious madam glanced at the fragrant moon inn and nodded. This place looks pretty good. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Of course we have to go to the best place to entertain our distinguished guests. And Fragrant Moon House is the most high-end restaurant in the imperial capital. Stop flattering me. The mysterious lady glared at him. Qin Feiyong smiled awkwardly and looked at the waiter. Take us to a secluded room. All right. The shop assistant nodded and hurriedly led the way. Qin Feiyong had long been a taboo in the imperial capital. Furthermore, in the hearts of the people, his position was comparable to a super overlord like the Hong Emperor and the imperial advisor. Therefore, regardless of whether it was the restaurant's waiter or the restaurant's diners, none of them dared to be negligent. Entering the restaurant, the people inside all stood up and bowed. Although they all hated Qin Feiyong in their hearts, none of them dared to show it. 8th floor. In a private room. After the waiter brought Qin Feiyong and the other three in, he immediately left tactfully and closed the door. Inside the private room, there was a separate dining room, tea room, reception room, and bedroom. The decorations were extremely luxurious. Everyone, sit. Qin Feiyong directly entered the tea room and sat on the main seat without any trace of politeness. In order to protect Qin Feiyong, Old Man Qin and Lu Jejin sat beside Qin Feiyong, one on the left and one on the right. The mysterious madam looked at the three of them and snorted coldly. She walked to the opposite side of Qin Feiyong and sat down. She said, I didn't expect your situation in the imperial capital to be so unbearable. How should I describe you? Fiend? Bane? This also proves that I have the ability. Qin Feiyong was instead proud. The mysterious madam was astonished. Qin Feiyong laughed and said, If I didn't have the ability, how could I have made the whole world my enemy? The mysterious madam rolled her eyes and sneered. I haven't seen you for a while and you've become more thick-skinned. You flatter me. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and smiled. He said, Let's not beat around the bush and get straight to the point. I don't understand why you want to help me. Don't you care about divine crystals anymore? Don't mention divine crystals to me. When I think of being cheated by you, I'm so angry that I can't wait to kill you. The mysterious madam immediately turned hostile. Her eyes flashed coldly. Old Man Qin and Lu Jejin immediately became vigilant. The mysterious madam glanced at the two of them and took a deep breath to calm her anger. She said lightly, Don't be nervous. I won't touch him. Old Man Qin and Lu Jejin looked at each other, but they didn't let down their guard. Qin Feiyong, however, had a belly full of suspicions. He said, Senior, can we not beat around the bush? Okay. I'll tell you directly. I helped you because of friendship. I didn't care about what happened last time because of friendship. The mysterious madam said. Friendship? Friendship? Who? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. The mysterious madam said, You'll know in the future that I came to you this time because of the 3 elixir fires. Qin Feiyong hurriedly said, Senior, you've already given me the elixir fires. Now you can't bully me and take them back. The flame of heavenly thunder, flame of frost, and flame of heavenly mystery were all given to him by the mysterious madam. The mysterious madam said angrily, If I were to bully you, would I be sitting here discussing with you? It's good that you don't want to take them. Qin Feiyong smiled embarrassedly. The mysterious madam rolled her eyes at Qin Feiyong and said, I only want 4 places. No problem. Qin Feiyong didn't even think about it and nodded directly. In any case, the elixir fires were given to him by this woman. There was nothing wrong with giving her 4 places. The mysterious madam said, Also, after we enter the divine ruin, I need you to do something for me. As expected, it's not that simple. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly and asked, What is it? The mysterious madam said, Take good care of my daughter. If anything happens to her in the divine ruin, I won't let you go even if you run to the ends of the earth. Qin Feiyong was stunned and frowned. Why do I have to take care of her? Are you not going in? Of course I'm going in, but I can't take care of her. The mysterious madam said. Why? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Don't you know? The divine ruin has 2 levels. If combat thearchs enter, they will enter the first level. If false gods enter, they will enter the second level directly. Simply put, combat thearchs and false gods won't be in the same space. The mysterious madam said. There's such a thing? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Why didn't Lu Xingchen tell him such an important thing? Did he deliberately hide it from him, or did he ignore this point? I won't lie to you. Because 10,000 years ago, I entered the divine ruin. At that time, your ancestor, the Lu family's ancestor, and Mu Tianyang went in with me. But at that time, I was still very weak compared to them. The mysterious madam said. There's such a thing? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. After Lu Jiajin came back to his senses, he looked at the mysterious madam and asked, You mean, after we enter the divine ruin, we will be separated from Qin Feiyang? Yes. The mysterious madam nodded. Lu Jiajin frowned. What if we're in the castle? There's a mysterious power in the passage that connects to the divine ruin. This power is pervasive. Even if we hide in a spatial divine item, it's useless. I remember that back then, Qin the Arch and Mu Tianyang did this. They both had spatial divine items, but in the end, none of them succeeded in sneaking into the first level. The mysterious madam said. That's not fun. Lu Jiajin muttered. Let me tell you seriously, the divine ruin is not a place to play. It's full of danger. Even a false god, or even a war god, will lose their lives if they're not careful. The mysterious madam said in a deep voice. Even a war god will die. Qin Feiyang and the others were dumbfounded. This was too terrifying. Old man Qin asked, Then in the divine ruin, is there a passage between the second and first level? Yes. But this passage can only allow people from the first level to enter the second level. If people from the second level enter the first level, they will be bombarded by the thunder tribulation. Back then, Qin the Arch wanted to force his way into the first level because of someone, and he almost died under the thunder tribulation. The mysterious madam said. Qin Feiyang curiously asked, Who is worth the ancestor taking such a risk? The mysterious madam raised her eyebrows and said, Does it have anything to do with you? Qin Feiyang was stunned and said helplessly, I'm just asking out of curiosity. Is there a need to have such a big reaction? But after saying that, he was stunned and pondered for a moment. Then, he looked up at the mysterious madam and asked, That person can't be you, right? Me. How is that possible? The mysterious madam said expressionlessly, but Qin Feiyang caught two blushes on both sides of her cheeks. What's going on? Could it be that this woman has something to do with the ancestor? Qin Feiyang's mind suddenly spun rapidly. He remembered that at the beginning, the mysterious madam tried every means to kill him, but later on, it was as if she had suddenly changed into a different person. Not only did she take care of him, she even gave him a large number of perfect battle arts. She even helped him train Fatso and the others. With the mysterious madam's temper and personality, she definitely wouldn't suddenly change. But why was that? Qin Feiyang began to recall. Scenes from the past kept flashing through his mind. Suddenly, his body trembled as he raised his head to look at the mysterious madam. The mysterious madam frowned and said, Why are you looking at me? Qin Feiyang said, If I remember correctly, it seems that after you found out my true identity, your attitude towards me began to improve. I can't remember anything that happened so long ago. The mysterious madam looked flustered and pretended to be calm. Hehe. Senior, what is your relationship with my ancestor? Qin Feiyang said with a sneaky smile. The mysterious madam's change must be related to the ancestor, because there was no other explanation. The mysterious madam's face darkened and said, It's nothing, we just met a few times. Really? Then why did you blush just now? Senior, it's normal to like someone. There's no need to hide it in your heart. Chapter 14:22. The mysterious lady said angrily, Kid, don't go too far. Be careful or I'll fall out with you. Although he had a vicious look on his face, his expression was very unnatural. Okay. I won't say any more. Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand, but his eyes were very ambiguous. He was now sure that the relationship between this woman and the ancestor was definitely not ordinary. However, he also knew that there was a limit to everything. The mysterious lady was not a kind person. If he angered her, even if Old Man Qin and Lu Jiajin joined forces, they would not be able to stop the mysterious lady from killing him. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong looked at the mysterious lady and said, "Senior, I can help take care of your daughter, but I can only say that I will try my best. I can't guarantee 100%. After all, you just said that the divine sight is not ordinary. It must be 100%. There is no room for negotiation. There is one more thing you have to remember. If someone around you breaks through to the false god realm on the first floor, they will be directly sent to the second floor by the power of the divine sight. Also, be careful of Lu Xingchen. This time, the chief pagoda will help you because of Lu Xingchen." After the mysterious lady finished speaking, she did not give Qin Feiyong a chance to speak. She opened the window, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared without a trace. "What a strong woman." Lu Jejin shook his head and smiled. "Isn't that so? I am afraid of trouble, but she threw me such a big trouble. It seems that after entering the divine sight, I will have to value her daughter's life more than my own," Qin Feiyong said helplessly. Lu Jejin shook his head and asked, "Have you seen her daughter?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. "How is her cultivation?" Lu Jejin asked. Qin Feiyong thought for a while and said, "I remember the last time we met, she had broken through to the 9-star combat emperor realm." Lu Jejin was surprised and said, "She is so strong, what are you worried about? Maybe at a critical moment, she can help you." "I hope so." Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. Then he frowned and said, "But I don't understand. Why did she say that the main tower came to help me because of Lu Xingchen?" Elder Qin pondered for a moment and said, "Could it be that after Lu Xingchen went to the Forgotten Continent, he secretly reached some kind of agreement with the tower? This shouldn't be. The hatred between the Mu Jia and the HQ is as deep as the sea. If you say that Lu Xingchen brought people to attack the HQ, I can still believe it. But I don't believe that he reached some kind of agreement with the HQ." Qin Feiyong pondered. Lu Jejin said, "You must know that there are no eternal enemies in this world, only eternal benefits." "Benefits?" Qin Feiyong murmured. He suddenly stood up and said with a smile, "Let's go, we will sneak into the main tower and take a look. You guys probably haven't been to the Central Divine Kingdom before, so I will take you guys for a stroll." He had to investigate this matter thoroughly, or else he would feel uneasy. Imperial Palace. Some people's legs were already numb from kneeling. One of them said, "Emperor Hong, Imperial Preceptor, are we really going to keep kneeling like this?" Emperor Hong said, "If you can't kneel, then get lost, so as not to be an eyesore here." The man's gaze trembled, and he hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to say a word. Whoosh! At this moment, a figure broke through the air and landed beside the Imperial Preceptor. It was Yan Wei. Yan Wei looked at the Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Hong with schadenfreude, and then whispered a few words in the Imperial Preceptor's ear. Of course. This schadenfreude, he definitely didn't dare to show it. What? After hearing Yan Wei's words, the Imperial Preceptor suddenly stood up, his old face full of shock. What? Emperor Hong looked at him suspiciously. The Imperial Preceptor hurriedly moved closer to Emperor Hong's ear and whispered, "My subordinate reported that His Majesty Hao Tian just took a potential pill." Emperor Hong's face froze and he suddenly roared, "Why did he do this? Does he not want to live?" The Imperial Preceptor said in a deep voice, "Now is not the time to be angry. We must hurry up and save him, or else he will definitely explode and die." Swish! Emperor Hong immediately got up and tore through the air like lightning. The Imperial Preceptor also brought Yan Wei and quickly chased after him. What happened this time? Why are you in such a hurry? Seeing this scene, everyone present was bewildered. Someone asked, "Then do we still have to continue kneeling?" "The two lords have already left. What are we still kneeling for? Hurry up and leave, lest Qin Feiyong bump into us, we won't have a good fruit to eat." Hearing this, everyone bowed to the statue one after another, then got up and opened the teleportation gate, fleeing for their lives. Central Divine Kingdom. Deep in the main tower, in a courtyard, Chief Pagoda Master, Gong Sun Bei, and Wang Su sat around a stone table, their faces gloomy, silent, as if they were waiting for something. Swish! Suddenly, accompanied by the sound of breaking through the air, a young man cut through the sky and landed in the courtyard. It was young Master Hao. After experiencing that incident, The current young Master Hao had undergone earth-shaking changes. Not only did his cultivation become stronger, but his whole person also seemed mature and steady, exuding a threatening aura all over his body. "Father, Elder Wang, Brother Gong's son, I just received news that you went to the imperial capital to help Qin Feiyang." As soon as young Master Hao appeared, he angrily walked toward the three. "Yes." Chief Pagoda Master looked up at him and nodded. "Why do you want to help him? Wasn't the lesson from back then enough?" Young Master Hao roared. Chief Pagoda Master clenched his hands and didn't say anything. Gong Sun Bei glanced at Chief Pagoda Master, then looked at young Master Hao and sighed. "If we had a choice, we wouldn't help him." "What do you mean? Who's forcing you?" Young Master Hao raised his eyebrows. "Shut up." Chief Pagoda Master slapped the stone table and suddenly stood up. Like an angry beast, he stared at young Master Hao and said, "What qualifications do you have to meddle in our affairs? Get lost and go back to cultivate." Young Master Hao was also angry and roared, "I don't have the qualifications to meddle in your affairs, but at least I know that a person must have a backbone." "Backbone? If you really have a backbone, why do you still keep those potential pills that Qin Feiyang gave you? If you have the ability, throw them all away." Chief Pagoda Master shouted. "Master, your words are a little too much." "Junior brother, Master didn't mean it. Don't take it to heart." Seeing that the situation was not good, Gong Sun Bei quickly stood out to persuade him. Young Master Hao remained silent, but his hands were tightly clenched together, and his face was ashen. "Look at yourself. After cultivating for so long, you only broke through to the 4-star Battle Saint realm. Look at Qin Feiyang. How long has it been? He has already broken through to the 4-star Battle Emperor realm. A 4-star Battle Saint and a 4-star Battle Emperor is a whole realm apart. Do you know what this means? All day long, you still want to take revenge on Qin Feiyang. Do you have the ability? Can you catch up to Qin Feiyang?" The Chief Pagoda Master became angrier and angrier as he spoke. In the end, he was almost roaring. Young Master Hao's body and mind trembled, and his face was full of pain. Gong Sun Bei couldn't bear it and was about to comfort him, but Wang Su reached out and stopped him. He transmitted his voice. "Don't worry about it. This child has to go through this to stimulate his potential." Gong Sun Bei thought to himself, but isn't using such a method a little too cruel? Desperate times call for desperate measures. Although he may hate Chief Pagoda Master now, when he grows up and matures, he will understand Chief Pagoda Master's painstaking efforts today. Wang Su said. "Sigh." Gong Sun Bei sighed. From a fair point of view, he didn't think that young Master Hao could catch up to Qin Feiyang. Because Qin Feiyang's speed of growth was obvious to everyone. To catch up to him, one had to be a peerless genius that was rarely seen in a million years. Although young Master Hao's talent wasn't bad, he was still a long way from such a peerless genius. However, he couldn't say these words out loud. Firstly, he was afraid of angering the Chief Pagoda Master. Secondly, he was afraid of hurting young Master Hao's confidence. Seeing young Master Hao standing there motionlessly and not saying anything, the Chief Pagoda Master became angry and shouted, "Why aren't you getting lost? Do you want me to personally send you out?" Young Master Hao let go of his hand, looked up at the Chief Pagoda Master, opened the portal and walked in without looking back. It seems that he has suffered a big blow this time. Gong Sun Bei sighed deeply. If he doesn't understand and work hard, he won't just suffer a blow, he'll die. In fact, I don't expect him to catch up to Qin Feiyang now. After all, his talent is still far from enough. And this time, Qin Feiyang will also enter the divine sight. When he comes back alive, his talent will definitely be even more amazing. But I just can't accept it. Why is Qin Beishan's descendant so outstanding and my descendant so weak? I don't want to lose to Qin Batian again. Do you understand? The Chief Pagoda Master looked at the two and roared in pain. Gong Sun Bei and Wang Su looked at each other and couldn't help but sigh. Don't want to lose to the ancestor again? What kind of grudge does he have with the ancestor? In the ancient castle, Qin Feiyang looked at the Chief Pagoda Master on the screen and frowned. He knew where the Chief Pagoda Master lived, so as soon as he entered the Central Divine Kingdom, he immediately drove the ancient castle and rushed here. Therefore, he heard the Chief Pagoda Master's words. Old Qin looked at the Chief Pagoda Master and the other two, then looked at Qin Feiyong and asked suspiciously, "Did the late emperor stay in the Forgotten Continent for a long time?" "I'm not sure about that. However, on the Divine Island in the Blue Sea, there was a murderous intent left by the Mermaid Emperor. The barrier in the inland sea was also set up by the ancestor. And in the inheritance place of the chief pagoda, there is a statue of the ancestor. In short, there are many clues about the ancestor left here." Qin Feiyong said. "The Mermaid Emperor." Old Qin's eyes trembled slightly. This legendary existence was the most powerful war god by the side of the late emperor. If he was lucky enough to see the real face, he would die without regrets. Time passed little by little. About half an hour passed. Whoosh! Suddenly, an old figure descended in the sky above the courtyard. "It's him." Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. The person who came was Mu Chongyun. This Mu family and the chief pagoda actually colluded? Old Qin frowned. At the same time. Chapter 1423. "Lu Xingchen, I'd like to see what kind of tricks you are playing." Qin Feiyong murmured. Whoosh! Mu Zhongyun took a step forward and landed in front of the three people. The three immediately greeted him. The Tower Lord said, "I have done what I promised you." "Where is it?" Mu Zhongyun said. "Don't worry, bring the Lord here first." The Tower Lord said, "Can you trust the Mu Jia people? What if you go back on your word when I bring the Lord here? Is my Mu Jia as bad as you say?" Mu Zhongyun snorted. The Tower Lord said, "We have been together for so many years. Do you think I don't know? Good. This old man will give it to you first." Mu Zhongyun's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he took out an iron box from his arms. The iron box was palm-sized, as if it was made of divine iron. It was full of a hard texture. "What you want is inside." After Mu Zhongyun finished speaking, he waved his hand and threw the jade box to the chief tower master. The Tower Lord quickly caught it in his hand. He looked quite excited as he opened the iron box. A cluster of alchemy fire suddenly appeared in everyone's sight. Heat waves rolled. Heavenly astral flame. Wang Su and Gong Sun Bei murmured. "With this flame, your tower can let people enter the miracle. Speaking of which, you are making a profit." Mu Zhongyun sneered. "Don't make sarcastic remarks. The heavenly astral flame, including the other 9 kinds of alchemy fire, originally belonged to our tower. It's you who shamelessly robbed us. Otherwise, it's not me begging you now. It's you begging me." The Tower Lord roared. When he thought of this matter, his heart felt suffocated. "The strong are respected, don't you understand?" Mu Zhongyun smiled disdainfully. "Hurry up and bring the Lord here, don't play tricks, otherwise, your tower will definitely suffer in the end." The Tower Lord's eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Gong Sun Bei, bring him here immediately." Although Mu Zhongyun's words were a threat, he could only be threatened. Because now the world knows that the relationship between Lu Xingchen and Qin Feiyong is very good. And the relationship between Qin Feiyong and the mysterious madam is also very complicated. In other words, if they become enemies with Lu Xingchen, the tower will face a 3-way attack. With the combined might of the 3 parties, his main pagoda was unable to deal with them. Gong Sun Bei nodded and soared into the air, quickly disappearing. Chief Pagoda Master withdrew the heavenly astral flames and looked at Mu Zhongyun. "There's something I don't understand." Mu Zhongyun coldly said. Chief Pagoda Master said, "Last time, Qin Feiyong tricked your Mu Jia so miserably, why are you still helping him now? You even let my tower?" "This is the decision of the higher-ups. I can't interfere, and I don't dare to interfere." Mu Chongyun said. "Of the tower? Could it be Lu Xingchen?" The Chief Tower Master frowned. Mu Zhongyun nodded. "Who is he? Even you have to be so respectful to him?" The Tower Lord was suspicious. "He is the Lord of my Mu Jia. His decision is our decision. By the way, don't think about dealing with the Lord. Otherwise, my Mu Jia will use the power of the whole family to fight against your tower." Mu Zhongyun said. The Tower Lord and Wang Su looked at each other. They didn't expect that Lu Xingchen's position in the Mu Jia's heart was so high. They also investigated Lu Xingchen's identity. But the result of the investigation was only Lu Xingchen's identity and deeds in the Great Qin Empire. They didn't know anything about his relationship with the Mu Jia. Whoosh! Soon, Gong Sun Bei carried a middle-aged man in ragged clothes and landed beside the three of them. Ancestor Yun. Looking at Mu Zhongyun, the middle-aged man suddenly shouted excitedly. This person is Mu Qing's father, the lord of the Mu Jia. From his appearance, it can be seen that he has been tortured in the tower during this time. This old man came to pick you up on the orders of the lord, Mu Zhongyun said and looked at Gong Sun Bei. Gong Sun Bei looked at the tower lord. The tower lord nodded. With the tower lord's permission, Gong Sun Bei let go of the Mu Jia's lord. The Mu Jia's lord immediately ran behind Mu Zhongyun and stared at the tower lord with eyes full of hatred. Let's go. Mu Zhongyun looked at the tower lord and opened a portal and said to the Mu Jia's lord. When the Mu Jia's lord heard this, he quickly ran in. Wait. Just as Mu Zhongyun was about to enter the portal, the tower lord suddenly spoke. Is there anything else? Mu Zhongyun stopped and asked without turning his head. The tower lord said in a deep voice. I hope you can keep the matter of the past a secret. This depends on the lord's intention. This old man can't make the decision. After Mu Zhongyun finished speaking, he stepped into the portal. The teleportation gate soon dissipated as well. Gong Sun Bei retracted his gaze and asked suspiciously. My lord, what did you just say? Wang Su also looked at him suspiciously. No matter what, don't ask, just do your job well, and, the tower lord looked at Wang Su and said, you go to the imperial capital in person and ask the state preceptor. I think he should know the details of Lu Xingchen. Good. Wang Su nodded. Go back. The tower lord waved his hand. Gong Sun Bei looked at each other and turned around and strode away. The chief tower master stood alone in the courtyard with his hands tightly clenched together. He looked up at the sky, and a trace of hostility that could not be dissipated crept up his forehead. Qin Feiyang, Lu Xingchen, Mu Jia. You just wait, I will make you pay the price sooner or later. Inside the castle, Old Man Qin suddenly said. It turns out that they didn't cooperate, it's just a deal. Qin Feiyang also breathed a sigh of relief. But then his brows wrinkled. What's the problem? Seeing this, Old Man Qin and Lu Jiajin looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, then he raised his head to look at the two people and said, I know Lu Xingchen too well. He wouldn't care about someone like the Mu Jia's patriarch, but why would he exchange the heavenly star flames with the main tower? You know, one more pill fire is equal to 1,000 more spots. Is there such a possibility? He used the heavenly flames to trade with the tower lord, mainly to help you rescue the Mu Jia's lord. Is it just an additional condition? Lu Jiajin said. Impossible. If he wants to help me, Mu Chongfeng and Mu Chongyun's strength is more than enough. There's no need to ask the tower lord. So I concluded that asking the tower lord to help me is an additional condition. He really wants to save the Mu Jia's lord. Qin Feiyang said. Speaking of this, he suddenly seemed to think of something. His face showed a look of understanding. He smiled and said, I think I know why. Why? Old Man Qin and Lu Jiajin were puzzled. It must be for the sake of Mu Qing. Mu Qing's Eye of Heaven is the most important thing to the Mu Jia. If Lu Xingchen doesn't save the Mu Jia's lord, it is very likely to cause Mu Qing's dissatisfaction and even rebellion. So, in order to appease Mu Qing, he reluctantly gave up the pill fire in exchange for the Mu Jia's lord. Qin Feiyang smiled. It makes sense. If it were me, I would also meet all the conditions of Mu Qing. Lu Jiajin nodded. Old Man Qin also nodded in agreement, suddenly looked up at Qin Feiyang and asked, Where is the Mu Jia's nest? Want to see it? Qin Feiyang said. Yes. Old Man Qin nodded. It's useless. Even if I take you there, you can't enter the Mu Jia. Because the entire Mu Jia is protected by a barrier. Although I sneaked into the Mu Jia last time and got a key to open the barrier, they will certainly rearrange it in order to prevent me from entering the Mu Jia again. In other words, the key on my body is useless now. Qin Feiyang said. That's a pity. Old Man Qin said with disappointment. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I will take you to the island and the inner sea to see the killing intent of the Mermaid Emperor, as well as the barrier arranged by the ancestors. This can be done. Lu Jiajin was surprised. His face was full of longing. Immediately, Qin Feiyang steered the ancient castle and silently left the main tower. Soon after, He opened the teleportation gate and entered the mythical island. At the same time, the Mujia. Mu Chongyun brought the Mujia's lord back alive. The happiest person was Mu Qing. Because the Mujia's lord is the only person closest to him in this world. After seeing Lu Xingchen, the father and son left happily. Mu Zhongyun stayed by Lu Xingchen's side. Is there anything else? Lu Xingchen looked at him suspiciously. Last time, although Qin Feiyong was the mastermind, the one who did it was the main tower. The blood feud must be avenged. Father, do you think we should announce the matter of that year to the world? Mu Chongyun asked. Lu Xingchen was silent. If the world knows that the previous generation's lord was murdered by the current lord, I think whether it is the people of the main tower or the major tribes, they will all go to crusade against him. Mu Chongyun sneered. Lu Xingchen said. But don't forget that you also killed the previous generation's lord. This doesn't matter, right? With the strength of the Mu Jia, even if the world knows, they won't dare to do anything to us. But the lord is different. Once this matter is exposed, the situation he will face will definitely be one of betrayal and isolation. Only death awaits him. Mu Chongyun said. I think it's better to put this matter aside for now. The miracle is about to open. I don't want to make any trouble at this time. After all, Qin Feiyong is not a person who is easy to deal with. If we fall out with the main tower, he will definitely take the opportunity to intervene. This way, it will not benefit our Mujia at all. Moreover, there is still a trace of a bond between Qin Feiyong and the main tower that is difficult to cut off. Lu Xingchen said. Qin Feiyong and the main tower have fallen out. What else can there be? Mu Chongyun was suspicious. Young Master, how Wang you are? According to my investigation in the past 2 days, although Qin Feiyong had a falling out with them, he gave them medicinal pills that could open the door to their potentials when they were falling out. This is enough to show that Qin Feiyong still cares about them. In addition, there is also Gong Sun Bei. Although this person is attached to the Lord, he is much smarter than the Lord. With him, we won't be able to gain any advantage. At most, both sides will suffer. Lu Xingchen said. Understood. Mu Chongyun nodded. Lu Xingchen waved his hand and said. Okay, you go do your work. There are some things I have to think about. Yes. Chapter 1424. The Island. Although a long time had passed, there was no change here at all. When Qin Feiyong brought Old Man Qin and Lu Jiajin to land on the island, they went straight to the lake below. At the bottom of the lake, the stone engraved with the mermaid pattern was still there. However, no matter what the three of them did, they couldn't make the mermaid emperor's killing intent appear. Helpless, they could only leave and enter the inner sea. However, not long after entering the inner sea, Qin Feiyong's image crystal suddenly rang. He stopped above the sea and took out the image crystal. Yan Wei's shadow quickly appeared. When he saw Qin Feiyong and the other two, Yan Wei immediately asked, Where are you now? Inner sea, what's wrong? Qin Feiyong looked at him suspiciously. Inner sea? Yan Wei was stunned and said in surprise, The inner sea is in the central divine kingdom, I am in the imperial capital, and I can actually send you a message. Hearing Yan Wei's words, Qin Feiyong was also stunned. Old Man Qin thought, it should be related to the space-time gate. Space-time gate? Qin Feiyong frowned. It seemed that this was the only explanation. The space-time gate connected the imperial capital and the central divine kingdom, connecting the two continents together. It seemed reasonable that the people on both sides could now communicate with each other. Qin Feiyong came back to his senses and looked at Yan Wei. Why are you looking for me? From the looks of it, you seem to be in a hurry? Yan Wei said in a deep voice. It's not a hurry, it's extremely urgent. The little prince is in the imperial palace and secretly took a potential pill. What? Qin Feiyong's expression changed. Old Man Qin and Lu Jiajin also trembled. How is he now? Old Man Qin asked. Not good. Just now, because of the cracks in his body, he has already fainted. The imperial advisor and Emperor Hong are thinking of various ways to save him. But whether or not they can save him, I still don't know. After Yan Wei finished speaking, he looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, Do you want to come back and take a look? Of course. Before Qin Feiyong could say anything, Old Man Qin spoke first. We'll go back now. Wait. Qin Feiyong stopped Old Man Qin. Old Man Qin turned around and looked at him in confusion. Calm down. Qin Feiyong comforted him. He looked at Yan Wei and asked, do many people know about this? Not much. Just me, Emperor Hong, and the Imperial Advisor. Yan Wei said. Qin Feiyong nodded and looked at Old Man Qin. Then we can't go back now. Why? Old Man Qin frowned. Because only the three of them know. If we rush back now, the state preceptor will immediately suspect Yan Wei. It wasn't easy for Yan Wei to gain the trust of the state preceptor. I don't want his identity to be exposed because of this. Qin Feiyong said solemnly. Old Man Qin was stunned and said with a wry smile, it's really chaotic because of concern, but are we just going to ignore it? The state preceptor and Emperor Hong are both peak semi-divinity realm existences. They will definitely have a way. You don't have to worry too much. Qin Feiyong comforted. Little cousin, that's not necessarily true. But before Qin Feiyong's voice faded, Lu Jijin suddenly said. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Lu Jijin didn't answer but asked instead, let me ask you first. Have you experienced the pain of failing to open the door of potential before? Qin Feiyong shook his head. Not only him, but the people and beasts around him also didn't. Using the small creation pill to open the door of potential was one thing, but the small creation pill and the potential pill were two completely different concepts. Even if the small creation pill failed to open the door of potential, it wouldn't have any impact on the self. Lu Jijin said, you haven't experienced it, but someone in our village has. What happened to them in the end? Qin Feiyong asked. He couldn't help but feel uneasy in his heart. I believe you also know that using the potential pill and the potential pill to open the door of potential, once it fails, one's cultivation will be crippled and one's vitality will be greatly damaged. In the worst case, one's body will explode and blood will splatter on the spot. Lu Jijin said. I know. Qin Feiyong nodded. Although it said so, after failing, the probability of losing one's life is extremely high. Since ancient times, there should be 200 to 300 people who failed, but in the end, there are less than 10 who succeeded and survived. As for those who died, Second Grandpa also tried everything to save them. But in the end, it didn't work at all. You have to know that they are all people with cultivation and meet the conditions to open the door of potential. Even they will die, let alone the little prince. Right now, the little prince has probably just come into contact with cultivation. In other words, he's just an ordinary child. And he's still so young. With his weak body, he won't be able to withstand the enormous energy of the potential pill. So I think that even with the Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Hong here, the little prince's life will be difficult to protect this time. Lu Jijin said. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong's heart couldn't help but sink. He didn't expect that after failing, the chances of survival would be so small. Feiyong, the little prince is your younger brother. You can't just ignore him. Moreover, if you're not interested in the throne, then someone has to manage the great Qin Empire in the future, right? And right now, His Majesty only has you and the little prince, 2 sons. If the little prince dies, what will happen to Great Qin in the future? Old Man Qin said anxiously. Don't worry. Qin Feiyong comforted her. He looked at Yan Wei and said, go back immediately and keep an eye on him. If the situation becomes more and more serious, immediately think of a way to spread this matter. Only when it reaches the point where everyone knows about it, can I go and help him. That's simple. Yan Wei smiled confidently, and the phantom quickly dissipated. Lu Jijin asked, little cousin, if the little prince's situation really reaches an irreversible point, how do you plan to help him? I don't know either. I really don't understand why he was so impulsive. Isn't this treating his life as a game? Qin Feiyong was very angry. Old Man Qin sighed. He's still so young, how can he understand these things? I reckon that he must have been blinded by hatred. I think so too. Lu Jijin nodded, looked at Qin Feiyong and said with a smile. He hates you and wants to avenge his mother. Moreover, back then, Emperor Hong personally announced that you killed the emperor. His hatred for you must be getting stronger and stronger. But your cultivation is too high. He has no chance to take revenge. So, he yearns to become stronger quickly, so he secretly took the potential pill. And he's so young, probably no one told him the consequences of using the potential pill carelessly. Lu Jejin said. Is this still my fault? Qin Feiyong frowned. It's not your fault, because no matter who it is, they would do the same. It's that woman who's wrong. As the Empress of Great Qin, she actually didn't abide by the virtue of a woman. It's Emperor Hong who's wrong. If he didn't slander you for killing the emperor, the little prince's hatred for you wouldn't be so strong. Old Man Qin said gloomily. Emperor Hong and that woman were the culprits of all this. But after saying that, Old Man Qin suddenly thought of something, his body trembled slightly, looked at Qin Feiyong and Lu Jejin, and said, I thought of a way that can definitely save the little prince. What way? The two looked at him in surprise. Fire of life. Old Man Qin said word by word. Yeah, how could I forget it? Qin Feiyong's spirit was shaken, but then it dripped down again and said, I used to have a fire of life, but it was fused by me, mother or fatso. Where can I find it now? But Qin Feiyong didn't notice that when he heard the words fire of life, Lu Jejin's eyes flickered. And when Old Man Qin heard Qin Feiyong's words, his expression also became dejected. That's right. Fire of life was such a precious thing. Either it had not been discovered in some dangerous place, or it was in the hands of some expert. This kind of thing was completely dependent on chance and luck. It couldn't be forced. Lu Jejin looked at the two of them, hesitated for a moment, and said, My Lu family has 2 clusters of fire of life. What? The two of them immediately looked at Lu Jejin. Lu Jejin said, In the hands of second grandpa. Please, you must save the little prince. Old Man Qin was wild with joy, even forgetting his identity, directly kneeling in the air, begging Lu Jejin. Lu Jejin immediately went forward to support Old Man Qin, and said, Senior, don't be like this junior can't bear it. Old Man Qin stood up, firmly holding onto Lu Jejin's hand, unwilling to let go, his eyes begging. Lu Jejin laughed helplessly, turned to look at Qin Feiyong, and said, Think about it carefully, are you sure you want to save the little prince? If you are sure, I will immediately go back and discuss this matter with second grandpa. I'm sure. Qin Feiyong nodded, not considering it at all. Lu Jejin looked deeply at Qin Feiyong and nodded. All right, then let's go back. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and opened the teleportation gate. The three of them appeared in the air above an uninhabited forest outside the imperial city. Following that, Qin Feiyong brought the two of them into the castle, and then drove the castle towards the gate of time and space like lightning. Old Man Qin was very excited along the way. But suddenly, his expression froze as he turned to look at Lu Jejin. Only now did he realize that he still did not know the identity of this person? Because Lu Jejin had been wearing a mask the entire time, he had not revealed his true appearance. Of course, even if Lu Jejin did not wear a mask, Old Man Qin might not be able to recognize him. After all, Lu Jejin had never appeared outside before. Old Man Qin looked at Lu Jejin and cupped his hands. All right, I have yet to ask for your name? You should be able to guess it. Lu Jejin laughed. Can you guess it? Old Man Qin was slightly taken aback as he lowered his head and pondered. Calling Qin Feiyong as his cousin, and also a member of the Lu family, and also a false god. Suddenly, Old Man Qin's gaze trembled as he raised his head to look at Lu Jejin, and said in shock, Are you Lu Jejin? That's me. Lu Jejin smiled and nodded. How is this possible? If this old man remembers correctly, you and Zhuge Mingyang are the same age, but you have already broken through to the false god realm. Old Man Qin looked at him with his mouth agape. Good luck. Lu Jejin smiled. Luck. Old Man Qin heard this and shook his head with a bitter smile. To step into the false god realm in just a few hundred years, could this be called luck? This was called a peerless talent. This old man has long heard of your name, but I didn't expect your talent to be so amazing. The world only knows that Zhuge Mingyang is the #1 monster in the imperial capital, but they don't know that the real #1 monster has been cultivating in a low-key manner. However, this old man admires your temperament. Old Man Qin laughed. Senior, you are flattering me. Lu Jejin waved his hand modestly. Old Man Qin shook his head with a smile and did not say anything else. He only sighed in his heart. Qin Feiyong was already a monster, and now there was Lu Jejin. With these two brothers working together, who among the younger generation would be able to compete with them in the future? Chapter 1425. After returning to the imperial city, Lu Jiajin immediately opened the portal and returned to the Lu family. Qin Feiyong and Old Man Qin were waiting at the Black Dragon Pool. Qin Feiyong was fine, just a little worried in his heart. But Old Man Qin was like an ant on a hot pan, falling into an extremely anxious and uneasy state. He couldn't wait to run to the imperial palace and see the little prince's situation with his own eyes. But he didn't lose his mind. Time passed little by little. Bas! Suddenly, Qin Feiyong's image crystal rang. Qin Feiyong hurriedly took out the image crystal, and Yan Wei's shadow appeared again. How is it? Old Man Qin couldn't wait to ask. Yan Wei shook his head and said, the life fluctuations are already dissipating, and the Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Hong have already done their best. Damn it! Old Man Qin roared. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and asked, did you find a way to spread the news? Yes. Before, I secretly let a few palace maids and eunuchs, pretending to be unintentional, and entered the little prince's palace. Now the news has already spread in the imperial palace. Civil and military officials are also on the way. Yan Wei smiled. Well done. You go back and keep an eye on it. I'll be there later. Qin Feiyong said. Okay. Yan Wei nodded, and the shadow disappeared into thin air. He's been gone for so long, why hasn't he come back yet? Old Man Qin anxiously glanced around. He just went back. How can he be so fast? Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. In fact, he also understood that Old Man Qin was not concerned about the little prince, but the future of Great Qin. The little prince had just ascended the throne, and the turmoil had not yet subsided. If at this time the little prince was killed again, then the people of Great Qin would definitely fall into a state of extreme panic. Of course, Qin Feiyong would not let the little prince have an accident. Because in this way, the emperor was very likely to take the opportunity to come back and seize the imperial power. In short, as long as he was here, he would not allow the empire of Great Qin to fall into the hands of this incapable emperor again. At this moment, for Old Man Qin, a day was like a year. Swish! Finally, Lu Jiajin appeared in front of them. Qin Feiyong stepped forward and asked, how is it? Lu Jiajin took out a jade box from his bosom and handed it to Qin Feiyong. Just as Qin Feiyong was about to reach for it, Old Man Qin snatched the jade box from Lu Jiajin's hand and quickly opened it. Immediately, a majestic life force surged out of the jade box like a torrent. He looked inside the jade box again. A clump of flames the size of an infant's fist lay silently within it. It was completely dark green as if it was carved from a piece of divine jade, and it emanated a sparkling and translucent mist of light. Qin Feiyong glanced at the flame and nodded. It's the flame of life. In this world, there should be no one who understood the fire of life better than him. Hearing this, Elder Qin was ecstatic. He immediately closed the lid of the box and opened the portal. He said anxiously, let's go to the little prince's palace immediately. Qin Feiyong and Lu Jiajin looked at each other, shook their heads and smiled, and then entered the portal one after another. Whoosh! The next moment, the three of them landed in the air above a palace. The palace had 2 floors. It was resplendent and tall. On the 2 thick stone pillars in front of the door, there were 2 lifelike 5-clawed golden dragons carved on them. The 5-clawed golden dragon was the symbol of the emperor. And at this moment, the palace gate was tightly shut. Yan Wei brought a group of palace maids, eunuchs, and guards to stand in front of the gate. Such a big thing has happened, yet you still hide it from us. Do the imperial tutor and Emperor Hong still care about us? Let us in. There's strength in numbers. Maybe we'll have a way to save His Majesty's life. It was very noisy here. A group of ministers gathered at the bottom of the steps outside the gate, staring angrily at Yan Wei. Yan Wei raised his eyebrows and said, without the orders of Emperor Hong and the imperial tutor, I really don't dare to let you in without permission. Please don't make things difficult for me. What are you talking about? Can't you see that we are concerned about His Majesty? You dog slave, relying on the support of the imperial tutor, you're like a fox pretending to be a tiger in front of us all day long. Let me tell you, we must go in today. If you insist on not moving aside, then don't blame us for being impolite to you. A few senior officials shouted at Yan Wei in a stern voice. Scram. But suddenly, a shout rang out in the sky. This voice. Everyone's eyes trembled as they immediately raised their heads to look. Their expressions changed drastically. Qin Feiyang. Why would he come to the imperial palace? And at this time? Swish. Qin Feiyang took a step forward and landed in front of the main hall. Old Qin and Lu Jejin followed closely behind him. Qin Feiyang, what are you trying to do? Do you want to take advantage of His Majesty Hao Tian's crisis to snatch the throne? Stop dreaming. Even if His Majesty Hao Tian really unfortunately dies, even if you snatch the Imperial Jade Seal, wear the dragon robe and sit on the dragon throne, we will not admit that you are the Emperor of Great Qin. And you, old Qin, please don't help the evildoers anymore. The civil and military officials quickly blocked in front of Qin Feiyang and the other two, roaring with righteous indignation. Scram as far as you can. The little prince's life was at stake. How could old Qin be in the mood to talk nonsense with them? Boom. Woo-woo. Old Qin directly waved his hand, the wind whistled, and the people in front of him suddenly fell down. Then, the three of them walked up the steps. But at this time, Yan Wei suddenly opened his hands, blocking Qin Feiyang and the other two, shouting, "You are not allowed to go in." He still had to act. After all, the imperial tutor was inside. Old Qin looked at Qin Feiyang. If it was before, he would definitely not hesitate to attack Yan Wei. But now, he knew that Yan Wei was one of Qin Feiyang's men, so before he made a move, he had to first ask for Qin Feiyang's opinion. Bear with it. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he secretly sent a message to Yan Wei. Then, he took a step forward and slapped Yan Wei's chest with his palm. Ah! With a blood-curdling scream, Yan Wei was like a meteor, directly smashing through the door of the palace, and then smashing into the ground inside the main hall. The ground immediately shattered, creating a huge crater. The moment the imperial tutor and Emperor Hong heard the commotion, they immediately turned their heads to look at Qin Feiyang and the other two, their eyes flashing with a fierce light. Yan Wei crawled up in a sorry state, ran to the imperial tutor's side, and said, "Master, I'm sorry, I really can't stop them." The imperial tutor said, "Retreat to the side." "Yes." Yan Wei respectfully replied and quickly retreated to the side. While glancing at Qin Feiyang and the other two and the imperial tutor, he rubbed his aching chest and pursed his lips into a mocking smile. Qin Feiyang stepped into the hall. Old Man Qin and Lu Jejin followed behind Qin Feiyang, one on the left and one on the right, their eyes filled with vigilance. Emperor Hong stared at Qin Feiyang sinisterly and said, "This is the Son of Heaven's bedroom. No one is allowed to set foot in here, including you. Scram immediately." Qin Feiyang glanced at him indifferently, ignored him, and scanned the hall. Soon, he was right behind Emperor Hong and Emperor Hong. He saw the little prince. The little prince was lying on the ground, his body dripping with blood. His small face was also deathly pale, and his life force was extremely weak. He couldn't even feel it. If one didn't observe carefully, no matter who it was, they would think that it was a corpse. Actually, the current little prince was no different from a corpse. "Get out of the way!" Qin Feiyang took a step forward, landed in front of the two of them, and shouted. The two of them were indifferent. Old Man Qin said angrily, "The little prince's life is at stake. If you don't get out of the way, I'm afraid there will be no hope." The two of them were bewildered. Old Man Qin said in a deep voice, "You didn't hear wrongly. We are here to save the little prince." The imperial tutor sneered. "Would you be so kind? I'm not in the mood to talk nonsense with you right now, Scram." Qin Feiyang enunciated each word clearly, his tone cold and bone-chilling. The killing intent in his heart also uncontrollably emerged. "You!" The imperial tutor was furious. Emperor Hong suddenly stretched out his hand, grabbed the imperial tutor, pulled him to the side, and sent a sound transmission. "Let him try for now." "My lord, are you crazy? Even we are helpless, let alone him," the imperial tutor said in a low voice, his brows filled with disdain. Emperor Hong remained silent, looking at Qin Feiyang who was walking towards the little prince step by step, his eyes flickering. Old Man Qin and Lu Jejin had always been following behind Qin Feiyang, in case the imperial tutor suddenly attacked Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang stopped in front of the little prince, sizing up the little prince's situation. This imperial tutor would like to see what kind of heaven-defying methods you have to take back his little life from the hands of the Grim Reaper. The imperial tutor sneered secretly. "Give it to me." Suddenly, Qin Feiyong stretched out his hand. Old man Qin immediately handed the jade box to Qin Feiyong. Seeing this, Emperor Hong and the imperial tutor also immediately looked at the jade box, their eyes filled with bewilderment. When Qin Feiyong opened the jade box, their gazes suddenly trembled, and their faces were filled with shock. It was actually the fire of life. Was he going to use the fire of life to save the little prince? The two of them couldn't believe it. The fire of life was such a precious treasure. How could Qin Feiyong be willing to take it out to save the little prince? Qin Feiyong ignored them, squatted on the ground, grabbed the fire of life, opened the little prince's mouth, and gently put it in. Boom! An astonishing life force, with the little prince as the center, immediately rolled out in all directions. And the little prince's cracked body immediately began to heal. The aura of life was also gradually recovering. He really used the fire of life to save the little prince? This little bastard, what exactly is he thinking? At this moment, Emperor Hong's heart was in a mess. Because from this, it could be seen that Qin Feiyong truly doted on this younger brother of his from a different mother. Was he really wrong before? He couldn't help but feel hesitant. Time passed bit by bit. About an hour later, seeing that the little prince's situation had stabilized and was gradually improving, old man Qin finally let out a sigh of relief. Qin Feiyong also let out a long breath, got up, looked at the little prince, and muttered, "I can save you once, but I can't save you a second time. Take care of yourself." Finished. Qin Feiyong then looked at old man Qin and Lu Jijin and laughed. "Let's go." The two of them nodded. Wait. But just as the three of them turned to leave, Emperor Hong suddenly blocked their way. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Yan Wei also became nervous, afraid that Emperor Hong would burn the bridge after crossing the river. However, it wasn't impossible for this to happen. Chapter 1426. Qin Feiyong looked at Emperor Hong and frowned. "What do you want to do?" "Let's talk in private?" Emperor Hong asked. "Let's talk." The imperial tutor's heart trembled. Could it be that because Qin Feiyong saved the little prince, Emperor Hong's heart was moved? Qin Feiyong was also rather surprised and said, "What else is there to talk about between us?" Emperor Hong said, "The grudge between us is indeed very deep, but no matter what, you and I are both descendants of the Qin clan, there's no need to be so cold." "Haha, a descendant of the Qin clan? Are you joking? If you really treated me as a descendant of the Qin clan, would you be so cruel to me? Cold. Compared to your indifference, what is this?" Qin Feiyong laughed loudly, his eyes full of ridicule. Emperor Hong raised his eyebrows and said, "It won't take up too much of your time." "All right. I'll treat it as respecting the old and loving the young," Qin Feiyong said indifferently. Looking at Qin Feiyong's arrogant and disrespectful attitude, Emperor Hong was rather annoyed, and said, "Follow me." After saying that, he walked towards the second floor of the main hall. The imperial tutor immediately waved to Yan Wei and said, "Come over and take care of Emperor Hao Tian. I will accompany Lord Emperor Hong." Without waiting for Yan Wei's response, Emperor Hong waved his hand without even turning his head. "Taking care of Hao Tian is more important, there's no need to accompany me." But the imperial tutor's face was filled with worry. There's no buts. With this old man's strength, he doesn't dare to act rashly in front of this old man. Moreover, we're upstairs. If something really happens, it won't be too late for you to catch up when you hear the commotion. Emperor Hong said. "All right." The imperial tutor nodded, feeling unwilling in his heart. Seeing all of this, Qin Feiyong and the other two couldn't help but smile at each other, then turned around and followed. On the second floor, in a guest hall. "Please sit." Emperor Hong stood in front of the main seat, looking at Qin Feiyong trio. Qin Feiyong said, "If you have something to say, just say it. Don't waste our time." Emperor Hong said angrily, "As a descendant of the younger generation, is this the attitude you should have?" "Attitude? I've already given you enough face by coming up here. I advise you not to push your luck and take advantage of your seniority," Qin Feiyong said in disgust. Emperor Hong clenched his fists, anger rising in his heart. "You're not going to tell me?" Qin Feiyong asked. Emperor Hong took a deep breath and said, "First of all, this old man is very grateful to you for saving Hao Tian. There's no need. I saved him out of my own will. It has nothing to do with you." Qin Feiyang said. Even so, I still have to thank you. Secondly, this old man wants to know why you didn't hesitate to use your flame of life to save him. Emperor Hong looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang frowned impatiently and said, "He's my younger brother, is that enough?" Emperor Hong was stunned and muttered, "Is it that simple?" Although he was muttering to himself, Qin Feiyang heard every word, and anger rose in his heart. Otherwise, why do you think I saved him? Greedy for the power in his hands? Or the throne under his feet? Let me tell you, the human heart is not as complicated as you think. I saved him because we're brothers. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. Saving someone, and being suspected of having bad intentions? How could there be such a laughable thing in this world? Seeing Qin Feiyang angry, Emperor Hong frowned and nodded. All right, this old man will believe you for now. As long as I have a clear conscience, do I need you to believe me? Who do you think you are? Qin Feiyang sneered. Facing the naked ridicule, Emperor Hong's anger rose from his heart, but in the end, he endured it. He looked at old Qin and Lu Jijin, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Can you let them leave first?" "No," Qin Feiyang said without any hesitation. His tone carried a tone that said there was no room for discussion. Emperor Hong fell silent. "Is there anything else?" "If there is, then say it quickly. My time is precious," Qin Feiyang said with a face full of irritation. "Yes." Emperor Hong nodded fiercely, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "This old man has a request." "Speak," Qin Feiyang shouted, his patience reaching its limit. Emperor Hong said, "The miracle is about to open, but the 10 keys to open the miracle are all in the hands of you and the Mu family, so this old man hopes." At this point, Emperor Hong found it difficult to continue, and his expression was rather awkward. Qin Feiyang's face twitched and said jokingly, "You don't want me to give you a key, do you?" Emperor Hong hurriedly said, "I don't want you to give it to me. This old man can spend a lot of money to buy it. There are countless opportunities hidden in the miracle. Can you afford it?" Qin Feiyang looked at him playfully. Emperor Hong said, "You can state your conditions." When he opened his mouth, he was already prepared to be slaughtered by Qin Feiyang. "I'm sorry, although you are very sincere, in my opinion, there is nothing more valuable than these keys in this world. Besides, what you have I have. What you don't have I have too. What else do you have that can arouse my interest? If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Qin Feiyang smiled contemptuously and turned to walk outside. "Stop. Let's put aside your identity for now, and just talk about the fact that you received my father's inheritance. If my father didn't give you the inheritance and let your bloodline revert to its ancestor, would you have today's achievements? But what about you now? Just because of some trivial matter, you don't care about the interests of my great Qin. Is this how you repay your kindness?" The Flood Emperor shouted with a stern expression. Qin Feiyang stopped in his tracks, and his 10 fingers gradually clenched. "A person must have a conscience. You must know kindness and be grateful." Emperor Hong said again. "That's enough. Being crippled by the Calamity Spirit Pill and expelled from the imperial capital, is this a trivial matter? You slandered me in front of the civil and military officials and the people of the imperial capital for murdering the emperor and stealing the imperial jade seal. Is this a small matter? My mother suffered so much in the imperial palace. I relied on my own ability to walk out of the spiritual state step by step and return to the imperial capital, but you guys shouted at me to kill me. Is this a small matter? If this is a small matter in your eyes, then tell me, what is a big matter?" Qin Feiyang suddenly turned around and stared at Emperor Hong. Emperor Hong said, "This old man doesn't understand these things. This old man only knows that father has done you a favor, and you should repay it." "Repay it?" Qin Feiyang murmured, shook his head in amusement, and said, "If it weren't for the ancestor, do you think Great Qin would still exist?" Emperor Hong said, "Is your hatred for us so strong?" "Yes, it is so strong. I once thought of destroying this empire that I hate with my own hands. But I didn't do so because the ancestor has done me a favor. So don't push your luck. Otherwise, I can't guarantee you the consequences." Qin Feiyang laughed coldly. "Fine. This old man won't say much. Since you know how to repay the favor, then take out something practical. Don't play these empty games we can't see," Emperor Hong said. "Haha." Qin Feiyang laughed in anger. What he had, he could say as nothing. What was black, he could say as white. The level of shamelessness of this old thing was truly beyond imagination. In the end, don't you just want the alchemy fire? All right. As long as you kneel in front of me and apologize to me, I'll give it to you immediately. Qin Feiyong said. In the past, no matter how much he had gone overboard, he would give Emperor Hong some face. But now, he didn't want to think about anything, as long as he could vent the anger in his heart. He had also thought it through. The other party didn't even treat him as a relative, so why should he care so much? Looking at Emperor Hong again. Hearing Qin Feiyong's words, his old face immediately turned ugly to the extreme. You're not going to kneel, are you? Then I'm sorry. Even if I throw away these alchemy fires, I won't give them to you. Let's go. Qin Feiyong smiled coldly, and turned to leave with old Qin and the other two. Looking at Qin Feiyong's back, Emperor Hong's old face was full of struggle. Plop. Finally. He powerlessly lowered his arms, bent his knees, and knelt on the ground, saying in a low voice, I'm sorry. Qin Feiyong suddenly froze. Old Qin and Lu Jijin also froze in place. Originally, they all thought that with Emperor Hong's self-esteem, it was impossible for him to do such a thing, but they didn't expect that he actually did it. Whew! Qin Feiyong took a deep breath, did not look at Emperor Hong, directly took out the sky-profound flame, and directly threw it to Emperor Hong, saying, I hope you take care of yourself. Finished speaking. He left without looking back. If you knew earlier, why did you do it in the first place? Sigh. Old Qin turned his head to look at Emperor Hong, let out a long sigh, and also left with large strides. Perhaps this is the retribution that the people talk about. I hope you don't continue to be wrong. Lu Jijin shook his head and also quickly disappeared. After the three of them left, Emperor Hong got up and grabbed the sky-profound flame, his old eyes emitting a monstrous killing intent. Retribution? Hee hee. You guys can be proud of yourselves for now. Wait until one day in the future. The humiliation this old man suffered today will definitely be returned to you 10 times, 100 times. A sinister smile gradually crawled up his face, as if a demon was awakening. It was incomparably terrifying. Bright Heaven Palace. Qin Feiyong returned here once again. Although during this period of time, Qin Feiyong was being suppressed every day, no one dared to come to the Bright Heaven Palace. Therefore, this place had always been empty, and no one cleaned it. On the ground, there were many withered yellow leaves, and the tables and chairs in the hall were also covered with a thin layer of dust, filled with a bit of loneliness and depression. Qin Feiyong stood in the center of the hall, scanning the surroundings, his eyes filled with emotion. A moment later, Qin Feiyong turned his head to look at old Qin beside him, and said with a smile, You go to the ancient tower to rest first. All right. Old Qin nodded. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and old Qin immediately disappeared. Immediately. Qin Feiyong looked at Lu Jijin, cupped his hands and said, Big cousin, thank you, and also sincerely thanks second grandfather for me. If not for the Lu family's help this time, the little prince would definitely have no way to survive. We're all family, what's there to be polite about? Lu Jijin shook his head and smiled. Family. Chapter 1427. Him. Lu Jijin shook his head and smiled. Thanks to you, he took a bath in a river next to the village to get rid of the stench on his body. Qin Feiyong laughed dryly. I swear, I didn't do it on purpose. If I had known in advance that the Devil Cliff was such a place, I definitely wouldn't have cheated him like this. Lu Jijin waved his hand. It doesn't matter. It's good to let him suffer a little. Then, are you going back to the village or? Qin Feiyong asked. Lu Jijin said, I heard that the time rules in your castle are different from the outside. I want to take advantage of these few days to completely stabilize my cultivation. Qin Feiyong smiled. Sure enough, as second grandpa and Lu Zhang said, you're a cultivation maniac. How can I not cultivate? After all, this is a world where one's fist matters. Lu Jijin said. Qin Feiyong nodded. Lu Jijin said, in addition, before entering the miracle, you have to take care of the people around you. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Lu Jijin said, if I'm not wrong, you should be planning to bring the people around you into the miracle. Such a good opportunity. Of course I'll take it. Qin Feiyong said. That's the problem. I heard from Lu Zhang that there are millions of people in your ancient tower, not counting the beasts. These people and beasts can't enter the miracle. Lu Zhejin said. Why? Qin Feiyong frowned. Because of the rule power of the miracle. Even if everyone hides in the ancient tower and castle, they can't escape the rule power's search. If you forcibly bring them in, whether it's the spatial artifact or the people and beasts inside, they will be mercilessly obliterated by the rule power. Lu Zhejin explained. Qin Feiyong's face was dull. Originally, he did want to bring everyone into the miracle, but he didn't expect there to be such a situation. You should only have 2 alchemy fires now, right? Then you can only bring 2,000 people or ferocious beasts into the divine ruin. You should think about who you should bring in. Once you've thought it through, if you can't find a place to settle them down, you can let them stay in my Lu family for the time being. Lu Zhejin said. That's troublesome. Qin Feiyong rubbed his forehead. After sending Lu Zhejin to the castle, he entered the ancient pagoda and stood on top of a giant mountain peak. He scanned the village and the people of the Sky Tiger tribe below. The construction of the Sky Tiger tribe was 90% complete. Most of the people in the village were originally ordinary people. However, after the return of Wang Yongfeng and the others, those who had the talent for cultivation began to step onto the path of cultivation one after another. Some of them even became alchemists. All in all, whether it was the village or the Tianhu tribe, they were all thriving. Qin Feiyong shouted, Elder Wang, Elder Qin, Lei Bao, come over here, I have something to discuss with you. The sound was not very loud, but it was clearly transmitted into the village. Whoosh! Immediately, 3 streams of light flew out of the village and went straight to the mountain peak where Qin Feiyong was. What's the matter now? When they landed on the mountain peak, Elder Qin looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. After returning to the ancient pagoda, his butt had not even warmed up yet. Qin Feiyong immediately explained the situation that Lu Zhejin had told him to the 2 men and 1 beast. There's such a thing? Lei Bao raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyong nodded and said, So I want to ask, do you have any good suggestions? Fatso and the white-eyed wolf were the first people and beasts to follow him. He definitely had to bring them along. As for the people of the Sky Tiger tribe, the strongest was Yan Wei. The others were only battle saints. Hence, no matter what the result was, the miracle had nothing to do with them. Then, only the people in the village and the beasts in the ancient pagoda were left. Elder Qin pondered for a moment and said, Actually, I think that having more people might not be a good thing. Qin Feiyong, Wang Yongfeng, and Lei Bao couldn't help but look at him suspiciously. Although the miracle is a place full of opportunities, not everyone can get these opportunities. On the contrary, the probability of sacrifice is very high. So, I think that we just need to choose some stronger people to go in. For example, Dan Wangkai can help refine all kinds of pills. Another example is the Spirit Snake Emperor. It has no aura and the advantage of changing the color of its skin. At the critical moment, it can play a key role. Another example is the Wolf King. Although his cultivation is not high, he can strip the fighting soul of all living creatures. Elder Qin said. That makes sense. More people might not be able to help young Lord. Wang Yongfeng nodded. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong looked at the 2 and asked. My suggestion is that the people in the ancient pagoda should not go in, especially the people and beasts at the peak of the 9-star Battle Emperor realm. Because for the people and beasts at the peak of the Battle Emperor realm, comprehending the profound meaning of becoming a god is the most important thing. Although there are divine items, divine arts, and other treasures in the divine ruins, these things are not very helpful to becoming a god. Elder Qin said. I object. Wang Yongfeng raised his hand and said, If we don't go, then who will protect young Lord? Elder Qin shook his head and said with a smile, Old Wang, do you think the current Qin Feiyong still needs someone to protect him? When the time comes, he will be distracted to protect you. Wang Yongfeng was stunned and couldn't find a reason to refute. Qin Feiyong looked at Elder Qin and asked, What about you? I want to go. The late emperor had been to the miracle before. I want to see if I can find the footprints left by the late emperor. Elder Qin said with a determined light in his old eyes. Then it's decided. Except for Wolf King and the others in the ancient castle, no one should go. I will look for the old master later and give him the ancient pagoda. Everyone can cultivate here in peace. Qin Feiyong said. It was too much work to ask everyone to leave the ancient pagoda and move to the Lu family's island, so it was better to just give the ancient pagoda to the old master. In this way, everything in the ancient pagoda would be the same as usual. With the ancient castle, the ancient pagoda didn't mean much to Qin Feiyong. Wang Yongfeng frowned and said, "Young lord, I'm really worried. Don't worry about me. Just cultivate in peace and strive to step into the semi-divinity realm as soon as possible. Only when all of you step into the semi-divinity realm will I have the capital to fight against Great Qin, Lu Xingchen, and the main pagoda." Qin Feiyong said with a smile. "All right, we will work hard and live up to your expectations." Wang Yongfeng nodded and solemnly promised. Qin Feiyong nodded. "Boss Qin that." Lei Bao looked at Qin Feiyong pitifully. "Don't try anything funny. My expectations for you are even greater. When I return from the divine site, I hope to see that you have stepped into the semi-divinity realm or even the peak of the semi-divinity realm," Qin Feiyong said. "Boring." Lei Bao pouted. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. He entered the ancient castle again and glanced at the white-eyed wolf, Lu Hong, and the others. After many years of cultivation, everyone's cultivation base had basically broken through to the combat emperor realm. For example, Fatso, the pangolin, the double-winged snow eagle, and the phantom snake emperor. Although the black dragon snake and Lu Hong had crippled their cultivation base and started anew, after these years of seclusion, they had caught up with everyone's pace. And now, the strongest one was undoubtedly the fire Qilin. Although it hadn't opened the door of potential, it relied on the bloodline power of the Qilin divine beast. After leaving the Mu family, it had advanced by a small realm. 6-star combat emperor. However, there were also people and beasts that didn't meet the requirements. That was Ran Wushuang and the giant python. Although Ran Wushuang had opened the door of potential, she hadn't cultivated in the ancient castle before. Therefore, her cultivation base had only reached the 6-star combat saint realm. As for the giant python, although it had also opened the door of potential after following Qin Feiyong and had eaten divine meat, transforming into a flood dragon and causing its cultivation base to soar to the 3-star combat master realm, before following Qin Feiyong, its cultivation base was too low. Therefore, its current cultivation base was the lowest in this small group. Currently, it had only broken through to the 9-star combat master realm. Therefore, Ran Wushuang and the flood dragon were unable to enter the divine site. Qin Feiyong sighed and stepped forward to look at Ran Wushuang. He said helplessly, "Sis, and you little fellow," Qin Feiyong said as he bent down and held the flood dragon in his palm. This was because the flood dragon had shrunk its body in the ancient castle, making it look like a small earthworm. "You all heard it too. It's not that I don't want to bring you to the divine site, it's just that I can't bring you in," Qin Feiyong said as he looked at the man and beast. Ren Wushuang opened his eyes and smiled helplessly. He stood up and looked at Qin Feiyong. "It's okay, as long as you came back alive." The flood dragon also made a helpless expression, feeling rather regretful in its heart. Because of this, the gap between it and everyone else would grow larger and larger. Ran Wushuang naturally understood this logic, but the rules of the divine site were like this, and he couldn't force it. Qin Feiyong did not delay any longer and brought Ran Wushuang and the flood dragon into the ancient pagoda, descending in front of the medicine field's courtyard. "Qin Feiyong, is my father okay?" Xueqi was chatting with the old man and the others in the courtyard. When she saw Qin Feiyong appear, she immediately got up and ran over to ask. "He's fine." Qin Feiyong smiled. "Grandfather, Uncle Yan, Aunt Xiao, Aunt." Ran Wushuang entered the courtyard and greeted the old man, Yan Nanshan, Luo Chenxue, and Lu Ji one by one. The four nodded. Qin Feiyong stood outside the courtyard and bowed to the four of them across the air. He then looked at the old man and said, "There's something I want to talk to you about." "What's the matter?" The old man got up and walked over. Qin Feiyong put down the flood dragon and appeared in the main hall of the Bright Sky Palace with the old man. He then explained the situation to the old man in detail. After the old man listened, he frowned and said, "Then according to what you said, Xuang can't enter the divine site?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. "What a pity. Do you know?" Xuang swore in front of her father's grave that she would personally take revenge on Lu Xingchen, so she wanted to enter the divine site more than anyone else. But now, sigh. The old man couldn't continue and could only let out a long sigh. There's nothing we can do about it. The rules are as such. Qin Feiyong was silent for a while and said, "Yes. We mortals can't break the rules of the divine sight. Perhaps this is Xuanger's fate. It's my fault. If I had let her follow you earlier, she wouldn't be a 6-star battle saint now." The old man's face was full of self-blame. "You don't have to blame yourself. Sister doesn't have to bear so much pressure. Because there's still me. Although sister and I aren't biological siblings, we're closer than biological siblings. Her business is my business. I'll settle the score with Lu Xingchen." Qin Feiyong said, his words cold and threatening. "Then I'll leave everything to you." The old man smiled. "Yes." Chapter 1428. Lu Family. No matter what happened outside, there would not be the slightest bit of change here. It was peaceful and quiet. Although the second grandfather's cultivation was strong, he was a good person. He was neither arrogant nor rash. Although the old man's cultivation was weak, he was neither servile nor overbearing in front of the second grandfather. The two of them had similar personalities. Thus, the moment the two old men met, they were like old friends and chatted happily. Qin Feiyong accompanied them for a while before leaving silently. "Feiyong, you're back. Xiao He has already sent us a message about what you did in the Imperial City. You killed 5 martial marquis and forced Emperor Hong and the Imperial tutor to kneel. I have to say, you're amazing." A few old men dressed in sackcloth saw Qin Feiyong and immediately laughed. "You're too kind." Qin Feiyong quickly waved his hand. Although these old men were dressed in ordinary clothes, they were actually peak 9-star combat Emperor realm experts. "Don't be modest. In this world, only you would dare to kill Great Qin's martial marquis in the throne room. Although it's a bit arrogant, we agree. Because after this incident, the remaining martial marquis will definitely not dare to collude with the imperial tutor." The old men chuckled. Qin Feiyong smiled embarrassedly and asked suspiciously, "Who is the Xiao He you were talking about?" An old man said, "He is your second grandfather's disciple. You are a junior, so you can't call him Xiao He. You have to call him Uncle He." Second grandfather's disciple. Qin Feiyong's heart trembled. "Your Uncle He opened a small restaurant in the first district of the Imperial City. He is specifically responsible for gathering news about the Imperial City. So no matter what happens in the Imperial City, we will be able to receive the news immediately. That small restaurant is called Lai Feng Lu. If you have any trouble in the future, you can go there and ask your Uncle He for help." A few old men said. Lai Feng Lu. Qin Feiyong silently remembered this name. "Let's not talk about this anymore. Come with me to my house. There are a few jars of old wine at home that I can't bear to drink. Today, I'll let you have it." "Old man, you only know how to drink all day. Don't you know that drinking is bad for your health?" Child, Grandpa has some wild mountain tea that he brewed himself. It tastes pretty good. Go and try it." Everyone was as enthusiastic as ever. Qin Feiyong's initial plan was to look for Lu Zheng. After meeting with Lu Zheng, he would enter the castle to cultivate. But then he thought about it. Why was he forcing himself like this? He might as well take advantage of these few days to adjust his state of mind. After all, they were about to enter the miracle. Only by adjusting themselves to their best condition could they deal with all the unknown variables. Moreover, an appropriate amount of relaxation was also beneficial to one's cultivation. Hence, Qin Feiyong gave up on cultivating. In the morning, he followed the men in the village out to farm and graze. In the afternoon, he played with the children in the village. In the evening, he accompanied the elders in the village to drink tea and chat. The rest of the day passed peacefully. He wanted to completely let himself go. The next evening, Lu Zheng appeared at the village entrance. The stench on his body had disappeared, but the anger in his heart was still there. Especially when he saw that Qin Feiyong was living so comfortably in the village, he was even more unhappy. He directly challenged Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong didn't care. If he wanted to fight, then so be it. But when they fought, Qin Feiyong suppressed his cultivation. But even if he suppressed his cultivation, in the end, Lu Zheng was still beaten black and blue. The people in the village didn't stop him either. They all treated it as a show. The third day. Qin Feiyong finally met Uncle Black. This was a dark-skinned man who was very forthright. His cultivation had also reached the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm. But late that night, after everyone finished drinking, Uncle Black left the village. Qin Feiyong didn't even have a chance to chat for a while. Time passed in the blink of an eye. The day of the miracle's opening had finally arrived. Early morning. The sun rose from the east. It was full of vitality. Qin Feiyong opened the door and stood in the courtyard. He faced the morning sun and stretched lazily. For the past few days, he slept very soundly every night. He hadn't relaxed like this for a long time. He felt that every part of his body was incomparably comfortable. Suddenly, he smelled the aroma of rice. He retracted his gaze and looked at the stone table at the side. There were 5 or 6 delicious side dishes and 3 bowls of millet porridge neatly placed on it. Get up. Go wash up and get ready to eat. The old master walked out of the kitchen with 2 plates of side dishes. He looked at Qin Feiyong and smiled. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. The old master had been staying in the village for the past few days. Although his cultivation wasn't very high, because of Qin Feiyong, the villagers respected him very much. And second grandpa didn't treat him as an outsider. Not only did he let the old master stay in his house, but he also brought the old master around every day. It's better to come at the right time than to come at the right time. Just as Qin Feiyong and the others were about to eat, Lu Zheng ran over and sat directly opposite Qin Feiyong. He picked up a bowl of millet porridge and wolfed it down. Second grandpa scolded. Brat, don't you see that old Master Ran is here? You have no manners at all. Lu Zheng quickly looked up at the old master and smiled. Good morning, Grandpa Ren. Good, good, good. Eat more if you like. Old master smiled. Of course I like it. Lu Zheng said. Qin Feiyong glanced at Lu Zheng and said disdainfully, You really don't stand on ceremony at all. Lu Zheng raised his eyebrows and said angrily, Don't talk to me. I haven't forgiven you yet. Do I need your forgiveness? Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. Old master and second grandpa looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. Second grandpa looked at Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, Ask your eldest cousin to come out. Let's have breakfast together. Okay. Qin Feiyong moved his mind and Lu Zhejin immediately appeared beside him. Second grandpa. Grandpa Ren. Lu Zhejin behaved very well and was polite. Okay. Second grandpa nodded and asked, How is your cultivation? After 40 days of meditation, it's almost stable. Lu Zhejin said. That's good. Sit down and eat. Take it as us 2 old men sending you off. Second grandpa smiled. Okay. Lu Zhejin nodded and sat next to Qin Feiyong. Old master got up and brought Lu Zhejin a bowl of millet porridge. Thank you, Grandpa Ren. Lu Zhejin took the bowl of millet porridge, looked at old master, and thanked him. Then he ate it in small bites. The time for the meal passed quickly. Jin, Zheng, Feiyong. Second grandpa looked at the 3 of them and his face became extremely serious. Qin Feiyong and the other 2 put down their bowls and chopsticks and looked up at second grandpa suspiciously. Second grandpa said, I only have one thing to say to you. You must come back alive. The 3 of them nodded heavily. Second grandpa glanced at the 3 of them and then looked at old master. After a short silence, old master looked at Qin Feiyong and the other 2 and said with a smile, To be honest, with your cultivation, I'm really not qualified to preach to you. Lu Zhejin said with a smile, Grandpa Ren is Feiyong's elder, which means you're also my and Lu Zheng's elder. There's no harm in speaking frankly. Okay. Then I'll take advantage of my seniority to say a few words. In terms of strength and intelligence, you're all the best of the younger generation. No one can even compare to you. But this time, it's not only the younger generation that's going to enter the miracle, but also the older generation. For example, the state preceptor, Mu Chongyun, and so on. These people are all existences that you can't compete with now. So after entering the miracle, no matter what happens, you have to think twice before you act. Don't try to show off. The most important thing is that you have to be united. To paraphrase a popular saying, if brothers are of one heart, their sharpness can cut through gold. Also, like your second grandpa, I hope that you can all come back alive. Old master said. Thank you for your teachings, Grandpa Ren. Lu Jijin did not look down on Old Master because of the difference in cultivation at all. Instead, he respected him. Second Grandpa waved his hand and said, when a bird grows up, it will eventually fly out. In the future, this world will be your stage. Go ahead and do whatever you want. Qin Feiyong and the other two looked at each other and stood up one after another. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and Old Master Qin appeared out of thin air. Old Master Qin looked at Old Master and Second Grandpa. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Hello, both of you." The two of them smiled and returned the greeting. Immediately after, the ancient pagoda flew out from between Qin Feiyong's eyebrows and flew to Old Master Qin, saying, "I'll leave everything in the ancient pagoda to you." Okay. Old Master Qin nodded. Goodbye, Second Grandpa. Goodbye, Grandpa Ren. The three of them bowed deeply and opened a teleportation door. Lu Jijin also took out the mask from his Chenkuan bag and put it on his face again. Lu Zheng was sent to the castle by Qin Feiyong. Whoosh. Immediately after, Qin Feiyong and Lu Jijin turned into streams of light and rushed into the portal one after another. Old Master Qin looked at Second Grandpa and said, "I don't know if I'll survive this trip. If I can come back alive, I'll definitely come back and drink with the two of you." My pleasure. Second Grandpa and Old Master Qin laughed. Also, Old Master Qin looked at Second Grandpa and pleaded, "If there are any changes in Great Qin during this period, please help, Old Master Lu." "I will." Second Grandpa nodded. "Thank you very much then." Old Master Qin thanked him and turned around to step into the portal. It's a miracle. So many people's dreams, and so many people's graves. Is it worth it? Second Grandpa sighed. Whether it's worth it or not, only those who go in will know. We're not qualified to say anything. Old Master Qin laughed. Yes. Second Grandpa nodded. When Qin Feiyong and the other two arrived in the sky above the square of the first district, countless people had already gathered in the first district. Everyone looked at the gate of time and space with a look of longing. Qin Feiyong, Old Master Qin, and that masked man. They really came. But this time, so many experts have entered the miracle, and there are even pseudo-gods. It's probably a problem whether Qin Feiyong can come back alive. Seeing Qin Feiyong and the other two arrive, the people immediately whispered to each other. Qin Feiyong and the other two didn't pay any attention to him. They directly soared into the sky and entered the space-time gate. The sky above the Imperial City and the main tower of the Central Divine Kingdom was also crowded and noisy. Chapter 1429. Qin Feiyong stood proudly, sweeping his gaze across the Pill Pagoda Square below. Apart from those who came to join in the fun, there were three groups of people who attracted the most attention. On one side was the main pagoda. On one side was the Mu family. On the other side was the Great Qin. The three superforces stood on the square in a tripartite manner, all of them remaining silent. But the difference was that the Mu family only had three people: Lu Xingchen, Mu Chongyun, and Mu Chongfeng. There was no suspense. The rest of the Mu family must be hiding in a spatial divine object like Fatso and the others. Great Qin and the main pagoda did not have any spatial divine objects, so the people who were going to the miracle were gathered in the square, led by the main pagoda master and Emperor Hong. No more, no less, both sides had exactly 1,000 people. The imperial preceptor, Zhuge Mingyang, Yan Wei, and Wang Zicheng were all there. Wang Su and Gong Sunbei were also there. And beside Wang Su, Qin Feiyong saw two extremely familiar faces. Wang Yu, young Master Hao. The two of them looked the same as before. One was peerlessly beautiful, like a beauty that could topple a country, and the other was handsome and tall, like jade. However, compared to before, the two of them seemed more mature now. Especially Wang Yu. In the past, she was a charming, youthful, and lively woman. But now, there was no expression on her face, and her entire body carried a coldness that kept people 1,000 miles away. Sigh. Qin Feiyong sighed inwardly, brought Elder Qin and Lu Jijin, and landed beside Lu Xingchen. Lu Xingchen smiled and said, "I'm just waiting for you." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and asked, "Where is the miracle?" Lu Xingchen said, "When the 10 keys are gathered, the miracle will naturally appear, but..." At this point, Lu Xingchen glanced at the imperial preceptor and Emperor Hong, frowning slightly, and sent a sound transmission, Didn't we already agree not to give them the pill fire? Why are you still giving it to them? Qin Feiyang said, didn't you also give the heavenly dipper flame to the main pagoda? Lu Xingchen was stunned. Qin Feiyang said, are you wondering how I know? Lu Xingchen did not deny it. Don't do it unless you don't want others to know. Qin Feiyang sneered. Lu Xingchen shook his head and laughed. He said in admiration, Brother Qin is indeed a difficult character to deal with. I can't hide anything from you. After saying that, he looked towards Emperor Hong and the main pagoda, and said, since everyone is already here, then take out the pill fire and summon the miracle. Emperor Hong immediately took out the profound sky flame. The chief pagoda master also took out the heavenly astral flames. Lu Xingchen waved his hand, and clusters of alchemic fire appeared. Different colors. There was also a bone-white alchemy fire. There was an alchemy fire that was as golden as gold. There were also alchemy fires that were as green as leaves. There were 6 clusters in total. Everyone took it out, but only Qin Feiyang remained indifferent. Lu Xingchen looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked, Brother Qin, why don't you take out the heavenly thunder flame and the ice-cold flame? Qin Feiyang said, I still have to wait for a few people. Who? Everyone looked at him in surprise. The person who could make Qin Feiyang wait was definitely not a simple person. When they come, you will naturally know. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, looking at Wang Yu'er and young Master Hao. The two also looked at Qin Feiyang. Young Master Hao's eyes were full of hatred. But Wang Yu'er's expression did not change at all. It was as cold as frost. No one knew what she was thinking at the moment. A moment later, young Master Hao retracted his gaze, turned to look at Wang Yu'er and warned, Sister, after going to the miracle, you must be careful. Wang Yu'er nodded. Young Master Hao glanced at Qin Feiyang again, snorted coldly in his heart, then turned around and soared into the sky, disappearing into the depths of the pagoda. His cultivation was not high enough, so he was unable to enter the miracle. He came here purely to send Wang Yu'er and the others off. As for Wang Yu'er, back then, when they went to the Blue Sea together, she was already a 9-star war saint. Moreover, before Qin Feiyang left, he even gave her the potential pill, and the small fortune pill. She must have already opened the door of potential. As a result, her cultivation had long since broken through to the War King. And judging from her current aura, she was still a 3-star war emperor. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and sent a sound transmission to Lu Xingchen. Other than what you told me before, is there anything else I need to pay attention to in the miracle? Lu Xingchen shook his head. Really? Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. Lu Xingchen laughed. Of course, why would I lie to you? Humph. Qin Feiyang secretly snorted. This guy was really not honest at all. If Lu Jijin had not told him that the miracle would kill the living beings in the ancient pagoda, he would have really brought the ancient pagoda, as well as all the people and beasts in the ancient pagoda, into the miracle. And this point, as someone who had been to the miracle before, it was impossible for Lu Xingchen not to know. But why didn't Lu Xingchen tell him about such an important matter? There was no suspense. Lu Xingchen definitely wanted to use the rule force of the miracle to get rid of all the people and beasts around him. In this way, the forces that he had painstakingly cultivated over the years would instantly vanish into thin air, leaving him all alone. This bastard, his intentions were truly hateful. Swish! About 100 breaths passed. Suddenly, 4 figures descended from the sky. The leader was the mysterious madam. Next was the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house, her teacher, and the middle-aged man that even Mu Zhongyun was afraid of. Although there were only 4 of them, none of the people present dared to underestimate them. This was because among the 4 of them, there were 3 false gods, and one of them was even at the peak of the false god realm. As for the remaining young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house, her cultivation was not bad at all. 9-star war emperor. Sorry to keep everyone waiting. The mysterious madam chuckled and waved her hand, bringing the 3 young ladies of the Dragon Phoenix house to Qin Feiyang's side. Mu family, Qin Feiyang, and the mysterious madam, these 3 parties are actually standing together? Could it be that they have secretly formed an alliance? Seeing this scene, the people from Great Qin and the main pagoda couldn't help but ponder. Lu Xingchen looked at the mysterious madam and the other 3 and frowned. They are the people you are waiting for? That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded. These people are not easy to deal with. Is this really okay? Lu Xingchen asked, looking a little angry. He never thought that Qin Feiyong would actually bring the mysterious madam along. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. It's more lively with more people, what's wrong with that? Finished. With a wave of his hand, the heavenly thunder flame and the ice frost flame appeared. All 10 types of pill fire had finally appeared. And just as the heavenly thunder flame and the ice frost flame appeared, the 10 types of pill fire seemed to have some sort of connection with each other. Boom! They recovered on their own, erupting with terrifying auras. Following that, a shocking heat wave swept through the heavens and earth. The entire Pill Pagoda Square seemed to have turned into a huge furnace in an instant. Even Qin Feiyong, a 4-star war emperor, was sweating profusely in an instant, let alone those below the war emperor. Other than those who wanted to enter the miracle site, everyone retreated. At this moment, everyone stared fixedly at the 10 clusters of pill fire. Suddenly, the 10 clusters of pill fire rushed out at almost the same time, transforming into 10 huge dragons that roared towards the clouds, causing the heavens and earth to lose their color. Everyone followed the 10 huge dragons and looked towards the peak of the clouds. Boom! Finally, the 10 huge dragons rushed into the clouds. Kacha! Walla! Boom! In the sky, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and the wind howled. The loud sound was deafening. Moreover, the sky that was still clear a moment ago was now covered by dark clouds and pouring rain. It could be said that strange phenomena were occurring frequently. What exactly is a miracle? It's actually such a big scene. Everyone was bewildered. Qin Feiyong and the others were also looking at the sky. There was nervousness and anticipation. Boom! Time passed breath by breath. After about 100 breaths of time, a vast divine might suddenly erupted in the sky, covering the heavens and the earth as it surged in all directions. This divine might. At this moment, everyone's expression changed. Because this divine might was too terrifying. Even Emperor Hong and Mu Chongyun, these peak false gods, couldn't help but tremble in despair. Who created this miracle? The divine might is actually so terrifying? Could it be a real war god? Everyone was incomparably shocked. Clang! Suddenly, another loud sound exploded in the sky, causing countless people's ears to ring and their blood to surge. Look, there seems to be something appearing in the clouds. Following closely, a cry of surprise rang out. Everyone looked over and saw a blurry silhouette gradually appear in the clouds. It was a door. A very large stone door. The stone door was 999 feet tall, completely black, emitting a mysterious and ancient aura. That divine might came from this stone door. It was like a towering mountain that stood at the peak of the clouds and shook the heavens and the earth. Is that the door to the miracle? People murmured, their hearts filled with desire. Emperor Hong, Lu Xingchen, the mysterious madam, the chief pagoda master, and the others were also wild with joy. Wait, there seemed to be 10 grooves on the stone door. Suddenly, someone was puzzled. Grooves? Everyone was slightly taken aback and hurriedly looked at the stone door carefully. Vaguely. There really seemed to be 10 grooves. But the distance was too far to see clearly. However, Emperor Hong, a peak stage false god, could clearly see it. The 10 grooves were all in the shape of flames, and each of them was only the size of a palm. They were arranged irregularly on the stone door. Lu Xingchen retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyong with a smile. Put the 10 types of alchemy fire into the 10 grooves, and the stone door will open. Then let's go. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. Grabbing the heavenly thunder flame and the ice flame, he rushed towards the stone door. Elder Qin, Lu Jejin, and the mysterious madam followed closely behind him. Seeing this, Lu Xingchen, Emperor Hong, and the chief pagoda master also hurriedly grabbed the alchemy fire, and with their own people, they chased after Qin Feiyong's group like lightning. Let's go take a look as well. The onlookers also rushed up into the sky. When Qin Feiyong and the others arrived in front of the stone door, they truly felt the deterrence and pressure brought by the stone door. Chapter 1430. Prepare to open the stone door. Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and walked out of the crowd. Seeing this, Lu Xingchen, the chief pagoda master, Emperor Hong also stepped out and landed beside Qin Feiyong. The 4 stood side by side, then looked at each other and raised their arms at the same time. 10 clusters of alchemy fire immediately flew out of their hands towards the 10 grooves. At this moment, the people behind couldn't help but hold their breath. After a few breaths, finally, the 10 clusters of alchemy fire each entered a groove. Bas! Immediately, bolts of purple lightning shot out from the first groove. This purple lightning originated from the heavenly thunder flame. In other words, the first groove was the heavenly thunder flame. The purple lightning was dazzling and didn't dissipate for a long time. And as if it was being pulled, the lightning rushed towards the second groove. Bas! When the lightning rushed into the second groove, a dazzling white divine light suddenly rushed out of the groove. Inside this white divine light, there was a bone-piercing cold current. That's right. This was what the heavenly ice flame emitted. Following closely, the third groove, the fourth groove. One after another, a dazzling divine light burst out. Finally, the 10 grooves all lit up, like a blazing sun. The divine light was boundless, illuminating the sky. And at this moment, the entire stone door was also suffused with strands of blood-red light, filled with an astonishing baleful aura. Wait! Look, the divine light of the 10 grooves are connected together. Don't they look like 2 words? Someone said in surprise. 2 words? Everyone was stunned and hurriedly checked carefully. Don't say it. It really looks like 2 words. The crowd was in an uproar. Qin Feiyong also looked at the 4 grooves suspiciously. Suddenly, his body trembled violently, and his face was full of disbelief. The divine light of the 10 grooves connected together didn't look like 2 words, but 2 words themselves. And these 2 words, he had seen them more than once. No sky. That's right. These were the 2 words on the stone door. Why would there be 2 words here? Qin Feiyong muttered to himself. Not only had he seen these 2 words before, but he also knew that it was a name. This was because the name Wutian was written in the pill mantra. Moreover, the pill scripture was written by this person called Wutian. Was this a coincidence? If it was a coincidence, wasn't it too much of a coincidence? If it was not a coincidence, did it mean that the miracle was created by Wu Tian? Not only did he create the pill scripture, he even created this miracle that even the war god was jealous of. Just who was this person? Rumble. Just as Qin Feiyong's mind was filled with doubts, there was a deafening sound. A crack appeared in the middle of the stone door, and then it slowly opened. The miracle has begun. Lu Xingchen and the others clenched their fists in excitement. Qin Feiyong also temporarily put aside his doubts and stared at the door that was getting bigger and bigger. What on earth was inside? But in the end, a trace of disappointment crept onto his face. The gap in the door was already half a meter wide, but it was pitch black inside. Nothing could be seen, only the sound of wind could be heard coming from inside. And even the sound of the wind was very weak. He couldn't feel any sense of danger. Didn't they say that the entrance to the miracle was very dangerous? Why does it look so ordinary now? Could it be that someone is spreading rumors? Everyone was suspicious. At the same time, everyone's heart was also active. If there was really no danger, then without the alchemy fire, could they still enter the miracle? Clang! After dozens of breaths, the stone door finally opened completely, like a pitch-black bottomless pit. Standing in front of the door, Qin Feiyong couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Although everything looked calm, experience told him that the calmer the place, the greater the threat. Whoosh! At the same time that the stone door was completely opened, the 10 clusters of alchemy fire swept out from the groove like lightning. As if they had a sensing ability, they flew in front of Qin Feiyong, the chief pagoda master, Emperor Hong, and Lu Xingchen respectively. And it was exactly the same as before. Floating in front of Qin Feiyong was still the heavenly thunder flame and the ice flame. Floating in front of the chief pagoda master was still the heavenly dipper flame. In front of Emperor Hong was still the profound sky flame. This made Qin Feiyong, Emperor Hong, and the chief pagoda master a little stunned, but Lu Xingchen was not surprised. Brother Qin, let's meet in the miracle. Lu Xingchen smiled at Qin Feiyong, and then led the alchemy fire and Mu Zhongyun into the stone door without looking back. Everyone, follow me. Seeing this, Emperor Hong hurriedly shouted. The people on Great Qin's side, including the imperial preceptor, immediately rushed to Emperor Hong's side. Emperor Hong grabbed the profound sky flame and swept everyone into the stone door. The chief pagoda master also did not delay for a moment and led Wang Su, Gong Sun Bei, and the others into the stone door like lightning. Without exception. As soon as the people of the three major forces entered the stone door, they immediately disappeared from everyone's sight. The whole process took less than 3 breaths, and now only Qin Feiyang and the others were left in front of the stone door. The crowd behind looked at the stone door and were ready to make a move. The mysterious madam turned her head and scanned the crowd, saying, "I'll kindly advise you all, it's best not to go in." "I don't believe that you would be so kind. If you don't let me go in, I'll go in and take a look." It was fine if the mysterious madam did not speak, but once she spoke, the crowd became restless. There were even a few one-star combat emperors who directly rushed into the stone door with a face of displeasure. However, after the few of them entered, there was no sound from the stone door. The mysterious madam said, "They've already lost their lives. It's just that outside, we can't hear their screams." So fast. Qin Feiyang was shocked. The mysterious madam said, "Without the protection of the alchemy fire, they will die the moment they enter." Qin Feiyang was secretly speechless. Old Qin urged, "Let's quickly go in too." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Wait," the mysterious madam suddenly said. "What's wrong?" Everyone looked at her suspiciously. The mysterious madam said, "Before you go in, I have to tell you one thing in advance, so that you won't be caught off guard." "Go ahead," Old Qin said. The dangers inside the divine ruin were unpredictable. The more they understood the situation in advance, the more insurance they would have. The divine ruin is randomly teleported. In other words, even if you go in together, you might not appear in the same place. So, after you go in, don't do anything. Look for your companions first. The mysterious madam instructed. Qin Feiyang's expression changed and asked, "How big is the first floor of the divine ruin?" "I don't know." The mysterious madam shook her head. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Haven't you been there before? How can you not know?" The mysterious madam said, "The size of the divine ruin is not something you can imagine. In short, no one in this world knows how big the divine ruin is." "Then how do we find it?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Don't worry. There's a way that can let you find everyone easily. This way is the enslavement seal," the mysterious madam said. "Enslavement seal?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "That's right. The enslavement seal can peek into the other party's inner thoughts and can also sense the other party's approximate location. Although it's not as good as Mu Qing's omniscient eye, it can save you a lot of time," the mysterious madam said. "Is it really useful?" Qin Feiyang expressed his aptitude. One must know that it was a divine ruin. The rule force inside was very likely to block the enslavement seal's detection. "It's useful. When I first obtained the enslavement seal in the divine ruin, I immediately found someone to test it." The mysterious madam nodded. "Hehe. Didn't you say that the enslavement seal was created by you? You must have let it slip." Qin Feiyang smiled slyly. "Ah." The mysterious madam was stunned and scolded with a smile. "You stinky brat, remember that you can't fly in the divine ruin, nor can you send messages, let alone open a portal." Qin Feiyang's heart sank. This was still a big problem. "In short, I don't care about others, but you have to protect my daughter well." The mysterious madam stared at Qin Feiyang and said gloomily before looking at Old Man Qin and Lu Jijin, "As for you guys," Lu Jijin said, "needless to say, it's impossible for me to sign the enslavement seal with you." "Same for me," Old Man Qin said. The mysterious madam said, "You have to think carefully. If you encounter the state preceptor and the others, without us around, you will definitely die. I only want to help you because of Qin Feiyang. Everyone has their own fate." Lu Jijin smiled indifferently. "In that case, I won't force you. When we have the chance to meet, we will join hands." After the mysterious madam finished speaking, she looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Quickly go and sign the enslavement seal with the people in the castle." "They want it too?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Yes. Even if they are in the castle, they will be sent to other places by the rule force." The mysterious madam said. "Thank you." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands in thanks and immediately entered the castle. Fortunately, the mysterious madam had told him this in advance. Otherwise, when he entered the divine ruins, everything would be too late. Not long later, Qin Feiyong signed the enslavement seal with everyone. Following that, Qin Feiyong left the castle and appeared beside the mysterious madam. He turned to look at the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Come. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion smiled sweetly. Qin Feiyong looked at the mysterious madam again. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was the mysterious madam's precious daughter. Even if the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion herself agreed, he did not dare to act rashly. It was better to ask for the mysterious madam's opinion first. The mysterious madam glanced at the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, then looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "After entering the divine ruins and finding my daughter, immediately remove the enslavement seal." "All right." Qin Feiyong nodded, his hands formed a seal, and an enslavement seal instantly appeared, entering the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Soon, the enslavement seal was completed. Qin Feiyong seemed to have thought of something as he looked at the mysterious madam and asked, "Senior, can Mu Qing's Heavenly Eye and Blood Soul technique sense the other party's location in the divine ruins?" Blood Soul technique definitely can't. After all, it's just a battle technique. But I'm not sure about the Heavenly Eye, because there has never been a similar situation before. The mysterious madam said. Qin Feiyong nodded and laughed. "Then let's go." He turned to look at the stone door, took a deep breath, grabbed the heavenly thunder flame and the ice flame, and prepared to bring everyone into the stone door. "Brother Qin, wait a moment." However, at this moment, a voice sounded from behind. This voice. It sounds familiar? Qin Feiyong was surprised. He turned his head and looked towards the direction of the voice, only to see 4 young figures rushing out from the gate of time and space like lightning. How could it be them? Chapter 1431. It was a man and 3 women. They looked ordinary, but they had an outstanding temperament. No matter where they were, they would be noticed immediately. Moreover, their auras were very strong. Even Qin Feiyong could not see through them. Swish! The 4 of them rushed to Qin Feiyong and bowed to the mysterious lady and the others. "Greetings, seniors." "You are?" The mysterious lady was suspicious. The young man cupped his hands and said, "I am Ling Yu. These 3 are my friends, Feng Ranran, Luodan, and Zhao Yu." The mysterious lady was stunned and turned to look at Qin Feiyong. "They are also my friends." Qin Feiyong thought to himself. But he was puzzled. According to Lu Xingchen, these 4 people had mysteriously disappeared. Why did they suddenly appear now? Moreover, their cultivation had become so strong? Ling Yu turned to look at Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, "Brother Qin, long time no see." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, "It has indeed been a long time. How have you been recently?" "After leaving the temple, we have been carefree and relaxed." "Naturally, we have been quite good." Ling Yu smiled. Elder Qin was surprised. "You were disciples of the temple?" "Yes. We came to the capital together with Brother Qin." Ling Yu nodded. "Then why did you leave?" Elder Qin frowned. Ling Yu sighed and said, "The temple is full of intrigue and intrigue. We really don't like this atmosphere." Elder Qin said, "Which place in the world doesn't have intrigue and intrigue? If you want to grow, you have to experience this." Elder Qin is right, but it is naturally best to hide and relax. Ling Yu smiled faintly and looked at Qin Feiyong. "I wonder if Brother Qin has any extra spots? You are also going to the miracle." Qin Feiyong was surprised. "If not, why would we come to you?" Ling Yu smiled. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and nodded. "Okay, I have a lot of spots anyway." "Thank you, Brother Qin." Ling Yu cupped his hands gratefully. "Count me in." Suddenly, a faint laughter rang out. Boom. Following closely, a terrifying aura surged out from the gate of time and space. What is it? Everyone looked at the space-time gate in shock. Soon, a gigantic creature flew out of the gate of time and space and landed in the sky above the Pill Pagoda Square. It was a large dog that was over 30 meters long. Its fur was dark red, and its entire body emitted a monstrous evil aura. What was even stranger was, there were actually 6 dog heads on the big dog's shoulders. Each of the dog heads was as big as a dustpan, with 6 pairs of eyes. 12 eyes, as if they were made of blood, emitting a ferocious glint. Looking at its appearance, could it be the legendary hellhound? According to legend, the Hell Godhound is a divine beast that is responsible for guarding the gates of hell. It is extremely ferocious. The crowd immediately began to discuss. It really is the infernal divine hound. Old Man Qin and the others looked at each other. A smile crept onto Qin Feiyong's face. Because when he saw the Hell Godhound, he knew who it was. Damn dog, can you wait for me? Why are you running so fast to reincarnate? With an angry shout, a young man rushed out of the gate of time and space, staring at the Hell Godhound, his face full of anger. This person had a slender figure and a thin body. He had a hooked nose and his eyes were like those of an eagle, emitting a sharp light. That's right. It was Tan Wu. Reincarnate. This emperor will also bring you along. The Hell Godhound snorted coldly, turned into a stream of light, and flew towards Qin Feiyong and the others fiercely. Tan Wu's face twitched and he shouted, "Okay, if you have the ability, come with me, don't look for Qin Feiyong, directly break into the miracle. Get lost. This emperor won't do such a stupid thing with an idiot like you. If you want to die, go die yourself, don't drag this emperor into the water." The Hell Godhound snorted coldly and took the lead to fly in front of Qin Feiyong. He raised his arrogant head and glanced at the group of people. This pair of quarrelsome lovers really haven't changed at all. Qin Feiyong shook his head and couldn't help laughing. "Kid, the last time I fell in your hands in the Magic Dragon Mountain range, it was because this emperor was careless. Why don't we fight again now?" The Hell Godhound's gaze turned and landed on Qin Feiyong, laughing. "Ah!" Qin Feiyong was stunned and shook his head. "Not interested." "Not interested? I think you don't dare to." The Hell Godhound looked at Qin Feiyong provocatively. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. "Damn dog, can't you behave yourself?" Tan Wu flew over and stared at the Hell Godhound angrily. The Hell Godhound laughed, looked at Qin Feiyong and Tan Wu, and said, "Why don't you two come together?" "Bastard! Do you believe that I won't take you to the miracle later?" Tan Wu was furious. "TSK, you can only use this to threaten this emperor." The 12 eyes of the Hell Godhound were full of disdain. Tan Wu couldn't help but feel powerless. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said with an embarrassed smile, "I've made a fool of myself. I'm used to it. It doesn't matter." Qin Feiyong held back his laughter and said. Hearing this, Tan Wu's expression became even more awkward. Qin Feiyong asked, "You guys are also going to the miracle?" Tan Wu nodded and said with a smile, "Of course, if you don't have any extra spots now, I won't force you." "Won't force you? Little scum. When did you become so open-minded? This emperor doesn't care about you. Anyway, this emperor must go to the miracle," the Hell Godhound said. Tan Wu's face was dark, his veins were bulging, and he said angrily, "With so many people watching, can't you leave me some face?" "You scoundrel, do you still need face?" The Hell Godhound was disdainful. Tan Wu was slightly stunned and roared, "Tell me clearly, when have I been a scoundrel?" The Hell Divine Hound said, "You shamelessly followed this emperor. Isn't this called being a scoundrel?" "I shamelessly followed you? Do you still want face?" "Back then, when I went to see old Senior Qin, who was the one who insisted on following me, unable to be chased away? Coming to the miracle this time, who was the one shamelessly following me?" Tan Wu exploded in anger. He had really never seen such a shameless bastard before. Old Senior Qin. Qin Feiyong's heart turned cold and he sent a voice transmission. "You guys were at Uncle Yuan's place during this period of time?" "Yes." Tan Wu nodded. "Is he doing well now?" Qin Feiyong secretly asked. Tan Wu smiled and said, "He eats well and sleeps soundly. No one is better than him. I really want to meet him." Qin Feiyong secretly sighed and looked at the Hell Divine Hound and said with a smile, "Stop arguing, I still have a lot of spots in my hands." "Who wants to argue with him?" "It's him looking for trouble all day long," the Hell Divine Hound said with a cold snort. "I'm looking for trouble?" Tan Wu pointed at his nose, staring at the Hell Divine Hound with a look of anger. All right, prepare to enter the miracle." Qin Feiyong hurriedly stood up to smooth things over. This pair of enemies, he had long seen before. If he did not forcefully interrupt them, there would definitely be no end to it. Hearing that they were about to enter the miracle, the Hell Divine Hound also immediately became well-behaved. Tan Wu and Ling Yu, four people, also greeted. After all, they were also considered old acquaintances. Let's go. Qin Feiyong looked at the stone door, let out a long sigh, and led the group of people into the stone door in large strides. The moment they entered the stone door, everyone's eyes fell into pitch-black darkness, unable to see their fingers in front of them. At the same time, a terrifying destructive aura enveloped over. In everyone's hearts, a sense of crisis and fear involuntarily welled up. But also at the same moment, Heavenly Thunderflame and Frostflame released divine light, condensing a barrier, protecting the group of people inside. At the same time, it also illuminated the path ahead. In front of them, there was a long passage, with no end in sight. And in the passage, it was filled with gray storms, and the destructive aura that enveloped them before came from these storms. Qin Feiyong said in surprise, "These are space-time storms?" "That's right. The power of the space-time storm is very terrifying. Even if it's a war god, it's difficult to escape death," the mysterious lady said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Tan Wu, the Hell Divine Hound, and Ling Yu's pupils suddenly shrank. The mysterious lady said, "There's no time to lose, let's go." Qin Feiyong nodded and led everyone to fly towards the end of the passage. "Help!" Suddenly, a cry for help came from behind. The group of people turned their heads and saw a few middle-aged men barging in, but they were instantly engulfed by the space-time storm and torn to pieces. This is the consequence of not listening to advice. The mysterious lady smiled coldly, without the slightest sympathy. Qin Feiyong retracted his gaze and flew towards the end while asking, "Will the stone door close?" "Yes." Lu Xingchen, Chief Pagoda Master, and Emperor Hong should have already brought the pill fire into the divine ruins. When we bring the Heavenly Thunderflame and the Ice Flame into the divine ruins, the stone door will automatically close, the mysterious lady said. Qin Feiyong asked, "Then when we come out, how do we open the stone door?" "Between the first and second floor, there is a vacuum area, and there is a stone door that leads to the outside. To open the stone door, you also need 10 types of pill fire. So you must take good care of the Heavenly Thunderflame and the Ice Flame," the mysterious lady warned. Qin Feiyong nodded. "I will also tell you the location of the first and second floor's passageways in advance. The passageway is located in the southwest direction. You search along the way, and when you see a palm-like mountain range, you go to the highest mountain. The passageway to the second floor is on top of that mountain. But you have to be careful, because at the entrance of the passageway, there is a giant python guarding it," the mysterious lady said in a deep voice. "Then what is its cultivation level?" Qin Feiyong asked. "False god," the mysterious lady said. Qin Feiyong's heart sank. Tan Wu and the others also looked extremely solemn. "Don't worry too much. That giant python is sleeping all year round. As long as you don't make too much noise, it won't wake up. Back then, we took advantage of its sleep to sneak past it and enter the passageway. But if it is in an awakened state, then you must not approach it. Wait until it falls asleep, because it will not let go of any creature that appears in its sight," the mysterious lady said. Everyone nodded. Chapter 1432. The mysterious lady asked, "Then what are you worried about?" Qin Feiyong said, "The last time you entered the divine ruins, it should have been 10,000 years ago." The mysterious lady nodded. Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice, "Then have you ever thought that 10,000 years ago, it was a false god? Today, 10,000 years later, would it have already stepped into the war god realm?" The mysterious lady was stunned, and said with a wry smile, "I really haven't thought about this." Qin Feiyong sighed, "If it has really stepped into the war god realm, then we can only pray that it has been sleeping." Tan Wu and the others also had a heavy heart. The Hell Godhound said, "This emperor is puzzled. Didn't they say that false gods can't enter the first floor? Why is there a pseudo-god level giant python?" "You have to ask the creator of the divine ruins, because only he has this ability. Perhaps that giant python was left behind by that creator," the mysterious lady said. "Creator? Wu Tian," Qin Feiyong muttered. "I really hope to meet this mysterious existence." While talking, 2 rays of light suddenly appeared in the passage ahead. "Is it the end?" Everyone stared at the 2 rays of light. Roar! But at this moment, A deafening beast roar sounded in front of them. Following closely, a huge black beast emerged from the storm. It was shaped like a violent ape, more than 100 feet tall. The pitch-black fur all over its body was like steel needles, emitting a bone-piercing cold light. How is this possible? Isn't the space-time storm able to kill even the war god? Why is there still a beast here? Qin Feiyong and the others turned pale with fright. Retreat! Tan Wu shouted. This giant beast was able to travel freely in the space-time storm. Its cultivation must have reached the peak of perfection, even surpassing the war god realm. Facing such an existence, even if there was Elder Qin and the other false gods, they would probably only die. Don't retreat! But before Tan Wu's voice faded, the mysterious lady shouted, Roar! The giant beast pounced towards Qin Feiyong and the others, roaring and baring its fangs. Both of his arms were as thick as buckets and filled with destructive power. It's not real. It's an illusion, the mysterious lady said. Illusion? Everyone was stunned. Yes. Everyone who enters will have to go through the test of this illusion. If you can't withstand the test and escape, you will be obliterated by the space-time storm even with the protection of the alchemic fire. So don't run away now. You have to face it bravely. I remember that back then, 2 false divinities fled in fear and ended up dying here, the mysterious lady said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong and the others broke out in cold sweat. If it wasn't for the mysterious madam, they would have really escaped. At that time, the consequences would be unimaginable. At the same time, they were cursing the person who created this miracle in their hearts. For a ferocious beast to suddenly appear in such a dangerous place, anyone would be frightened. Wasn't this a deliberate trap? The giant beast roared as it raised its dustpan-sized giant hand and slapped towards Qin Feiyong and his group. This scene was too lifelike. Whether it was the appearance of the giant beast or that terrifying ferocious power, it was no different from the real thing. Knowing that it was fake, but looking at this scene, Qin Feiyong and the others' hearts almost jumped out of their chest. When the giant palm came, Feng Ranran, Luo Dan, and Zhao Yu, these 3 women, even instinctively closed their eyes. But in the end, nothing happened. After the giant palm slapped down, it instantly dissipated like air. The giant beast in front of them also dissipated into nothingness. It's really scary. Ling Yu patted his chest with lingering fear. Yeah. If no one reminded us, we wouldn't be able to tell that this is just an illusion. Tan Wu said. TCH. Look at you guys, so what if it's real? If 1 comes, I'll kill 1. If 2 come, I'll kill 2. The Hell Divine Hound said disdainfully. Everyone rolled their eyes. This guy was more afraid than anyone before and even hid behind Tan Wu. Now that it disappeared, it ran out to show off? Tan Wu was indeed right. This guy was a shameless fellow. Everyone calmed down and looked at the 2 light spots again. The light spots had already become the size of a wash basin. There was a long distance between the 2 light spots. The mysterious lady said, the light spot on the left is the entrance to the first level, and the light spot on the right is the entrance to the second level. Are you all ready? Qin Feiyong and the others nodded, their eyes full of anticipation. For ordinary people, entering such a place where everything was unknown, they would definitely be nervous and perturbed. But for monsters like Qin Feiyong and Ling Yu, there was only anticipation in their hearts. 5 breaths later, the light spots had become the size of a dustpan. 20 breaths later, the size of the light spots was already more than 3 feet, like 2 full moons, emitting a dazzling light. Finally, they saw the situation around the 2 light spots clearly. Within 1,000 feet around the 2 light spots, it was a vacuum zone. There was no wind, but there was nothing else. Feiyong, I believe you can definitely become a god on the first level. I'll wait for you on the second level. Lu Jiajin said. Qin Feiyong laughed. I won't make you wait too long. Lu Jiajin nodded. A few breaths later, a group of people entered the vacuum zone. The barrier formed by the heavenly thunderflame and the ice flame automatically dissipated. The moment the barrier dissipated, a powerful suction force emerged from the 2 entrances. Qin Feiyong, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House, Tan Wu, the Hell God Hound, and Ling Yu immediately flew towards the left entrance uncontrollably. The mysterious lady, Elder Qin, Lu Jiajin, the teacher of the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House, and the middle-aged man flew towards the right entrance uncontrollably. Mother, teacher, uncle, take care. Following the shout of the miss of the Dragon Phoenix house, the people on both sides entered the entrance and disappeared without a trace. On a vast plain. Suddenly. Following a scream, a figure fell from the sky like a meteorite, heavily smashing into the center of the plain, causing dust to fly everywhere. Damn it, how could it fall like this? If his cultivation was a little weaker, wouldn't he have fallen to his death? An angry curse immediately sounded from the dust. Following closely, a young man in white limped out of the dust, rubbing his buttocks as he cursed. That's right. This person was Qin Feiyang. However, at this moment, his hair was disheveled and his face was dirty. He was in an extremely sorry state. Moreover, after that fall, his entire body felt as if it was about to fall apart. It was extremely sore. Originally, he thought that he would land steadily on the ground or be directly teleported to the ground. However, he didn't expect that he would fall from the sky. Wasn't this asking for his life? Fortunately, his cultivation was strong enough. Otherwise, he would have fallen to his death. Qin Feiyang exhaled, casually patted the dust off his body, and then raised his head to look around. Immediately, he frowned. This plain stretched as far as the eye could see. However, there was nothing on this plain. It could be described as not a single blade of grass growing. The ground was also covered with dry cracks, like a spider web. Moreover, looking around, he couldn't find a trace of a fierce beast or even a flying insect. Is this a miracle? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Wait. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why was it so hot? He looked at his two arms. His skin was already dripping with sweat. Swish. He hurriedly looked up at the sky and his body suddenly froze. The sky stretched as far as the eye could see. There were no clouds for thousands of miles. However, there were actually 10 scorching suns hanging in the sky here. That's right. There were indeed 10 suns in the sky. The 10 suns were arranged in a row, like 7 stars in a row, emitting a scorching heat, burning this piece of land. No wonder there isn't even a blade of grass here. It turns out that there are 10 eunuchs. Qin Feiyang muttered. Sweat dripped down like rain, dripping onto the rolling ground, making a sizzling sound. Bas! Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand and condensed a battle chi boundary to isolate the scorching sunlight. As the temperature here was too high, even if he was a 4-star combat emperor, if he didn't stop it, he would become weak due to lack of water and might even lose his life. However, after the boundary appeared, he didn't feel cold at all. It was still so hot. What's going on? This time, Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. After repeated tests, he finally got a shocking result. The battle chi boundary actually couldn't isolate the sunlight. This meant that the boundary existed in name only and didn't have any effect at all. Isn't this too outrageous? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. It seemed that the most important thing now was to find a water source. However, would there be a water source here? On such a hot day, even if there was a water source, it would have dried up long ago. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. He never expected that a 4-star combat emperor would actually have a day where he would be worried about water. Fortunately, he still had the ancient castle. The ancient castle could definitely avoid the high temperature here. Swish! Qin Feiyang had an idea and was about to enter the ancient castle. However, suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and scanned the empty space. In the empty space, he actually couldn't sense the existence of essence. Essence was something that all living things in the world needed. For example, humans and beasts needed essence to cultivate. However, Qin Feiyang used to refine battle chi pills to cultivate. Therefore, he didn't pay much attention to essence. However, at this point, he couldn't ignore this problem anymore. This was because the battle chi pills would be used up sooner or later. Although he also cultivated a medicinal field, the medicinal field was in the ancient pagoda and the ancient pagoda was now in the hands of the old master. This meant that he couldn't count on the medicinal field anymore. Why didn't anyone tell me that there was a lack of essence here? Otherwise, I could have prepared more medicinal materials for battle chi pills. Qin Feiyang was extremely annoyed. He tried to fly, open the teleportation door, and revive the image crystal. However, none of them worked. The scorching temperature, the lack of essence, and all kinds of restrictions. For a cultivator, this is really a cruel place. Qin Feiyong sighed secretly. With an idea, he entered the ancient castle. Looking at this familiar place, Qin Feiyong couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Because once he arrived here, his whole body immediately cooled down. He couldn't feel the heat at all. However, as the mysterious lady said, Fatso, Lu Hong, Viper, Dan Wangkai, Lu Zheng, Wolf King, Winged Snow Eagle, and other beasts had all disappeared without a trace. At this moment, he was the only one in the entire ancient castle. Don't say. Chapter 1433. I have to find everyone as soon as possible. Qin Feiyong muttered. The conditions here were too bad, and everyone was wandering outside. He was very worried. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed through the slave seal. The first thing he looked for was the white-eyed wolf. A moment later, he finally sensed the location of the white-eyed wolf. It was in the northeast direction, estimated to be tens of thousands of miles away from the plain where he was. Too far. Qin Feiyong muttered and sensed the location of Lu Hong and the others, as well as the double-winged snow eagle and the other beasts. In the end, he found that everyone was in different directions. They were also very far away from him. The white-eyed wolf was the closest to him. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and carefully sensed the location of the miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Soon. Qin Feiyong was stunned. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was actually near him. It was estimated to be only 500 to 600 miles away, located in the southeast direction. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong decided to find the miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion first. First, because this woman was the closest to him. Second, if something happened to this woman and the mysterious madam investigated, he couldn't bear the responsibility. After making the decision, Qin Feiyong immediately drove the castle and flew towards the southeast. However, he found that the scene in the void in front of him didn't move. The scene didn't move, which meant that the castle didn't move either. Qin Feiyong was dumbfounded on the spot. Could it be that the castle couldn't fly? He quickly closed his eyes and sensed the situation of the castle. He found that the castle that had turned into dust was not floating in the void, but lying quietly on the dry and cracked ground. He tried several times, but the castle still didn't move. How can I play like this? Qin Feiyong frowned. He thought that with the castle, he could avoid contact with the hot weather outside, but he didn't expect that the castle couldn't move. The castle that couldn't be moved, in this environment to be honest, wasn't of much help to him. Looks like I can't be lazy in this place. I have to do everything myself. Qin Feiyong sighed helplessly. He left the castle and appeared on the plains. The scorching heat instantly enveloped them. In less than 3 breaths, Qin Feiyong was drenched in sweat. But now, he didn't have time to think too much about it. Using the phantom steps, he turned into a stream of light and sped towards the southeast. He was the only one left on the vast plain. Qin Feiyong's heart gradually became heavy under the hot weather and the deathly stillness. His brows were filled with wariness. Because in such an unknown place, variables could appear at any time. After galloping for about 100 miles, they still couldn't see the end of the plain. But suddenly, Qin Feiyong felt like something was flying behind him with a gust of wind. Qin Feiyong, who had been tempered by life and death situations all year round, naturally reacted quickly. He immediately stopped and turned his head to look. However, he couldn't see anything in the void behind him. There was no movement on the ground either. What's going on? Could it be an illusion? Qin Feiyong frowned, turned back and continued to gallop forward, but secretly paid attention. About a dozen breaths passed. Suddenly, the wind blew. Qin Feiyong suddenly turned around to look. This move could be said to be lightning fast. This time, he caught a bloody light and jumped into the crack under his feet like lightning. When Qin Feiyong looked down at the crack, it had disappeared. What the hell? Qin Feiyong was surprised. That bloody light was only the size of a palm and didn't have any aura. It felt like a ghost, difficult to catch. Boom. All of a sudden, Qin Feiyong's aura erupted. He stepped down and immediately retreated. Boom. Immediately, the place where he had stepped on before collapsed and sank crazily. In just a moment, a huge pit of hundreds of feet appeared. Dust and smoke filled the air. Qin Feiyong's eyes were like torches. With a wave of his hand, A strong wind whistled and the dust and smoke were quickly blown away. However, when the dust and smoke dissipated, there was nothing except for that huge pit. You really know how to hide. No matter what you are, you'd better not bother me again. Qin Feiyong scanned the huge pit and couldn't help but feel angry. He didn't want to waste any more time. With a cold snort, he turned into a stream of light and quickly left. As if hearing Qin Feiyong's words, that bloody light didn't appear again. Soon, Qin Feiyong sped for another 300 to 400 miles. However, he still couldn't see the end of the plain. It seemed to be really endless. However, on a small slope more than 10 miles away, he saw a person. It was a woman. She was wearing a light golden dress. Her figure was tall and slender, and her bearing was graceful. On her face, there was also a veil. Only a pair of clear eyes could be seen. Her long hair draped over her shoulders, giving off a sense of mystery. That's right. This woman was the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House. At this moment, she stood on the hillside and looked around, as if she was looking for something. However, at this moment under the scorching heat, she was also sweating profusely, and her clothes were almost drenched. Soon, she also noticed Qin Feiyong, and a strange light flashed across her eyes, and she hurriedly rushed towards Qin Feiyong. Not long later, the two of them gathered together. Qin Feiyong asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House nodded and asked, "What about you?" Qin Feiyong said, "I didn't encounter any danger. What were you looking for just now?" The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House looked around and said, "I feel like something is following me, but every time I look back, there's nothing there." "You actually noticed this too?" Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. "What is it?" "You've encountered it too." The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House was surprised. "Yes. I also saw a blood-red light, but because it was too fast, I didn't see its true appearance clearly." Qin Feiyong said solemnly. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House's heart sank. She scanned the plains and said uneasily, "I keep having an ominous feeling. Let's leave this place quickly." Qin Feiyong nodded and said, "Let's go find the white-eyed wolf first. It's in the northeast." "Northeast? We're in the southeast right now. Isn't it the opposite?" The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House frowned. Qin Feiyong said, "There's nothing I can do about it. The white-eyed wolf is the closest to me, so I'll definitely look for it first." "How far is it?" the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House asked. Qin Feiyong said, "According to my estimation, it should be 40 to 50,000 miles. 40 to 50,000 miles is the closest? The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House could not help but laugh bitterly. "Don't dawdle, let's go," Qin Feiyong urged. He then used phantom steps and turned around to go back the way he came. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House hurriedly chased after him. Just as she was about to catch up to Qin Feiyong, a shocking killing intent flashed across her eyes. His eyes instantly turned blood-red. Following closely, she raised her arm and slapped towards Qin Feiyong's head. There was no sound or aura at all. Even Qin Feiyong, who was right in front of him, did not notice it. "Qin Feiyong, be careful." However, at the same time, an anxious shout came from the left in the distance. This voice. Qin Feiyong was startled, and immediately looked to the left, only to see a woman wearing a light golden dress, waving her hand and shouting as she rushed over. "What's going on?" Qin Feiyong was dumbfounded on the spot. That woman was actually the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House. Wasn't the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House behind him? When did he run over there? "Be careful behind you." The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House on the left, seeing that Qin Feiyong did not realize the danger behind him at all, shouted loudly, her heart burning with anxiety. "Behind me?" Qin Feiyong was startled. He immediately turned his head to look, and his expression immediately changed. How could there be two Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House? At the same time, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House behind him also struck out with her palm, her mouth also releasing a terrifying sinister smile. At this time, it was already too late for Qin Feiyong to dodge. Because he discovered it too late. He had never thought that this Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House would sneak attack him from behind. However, after all, he had experienced countless life and death situations, and his battle awareness far exceeded that of ordinary people. In the nick of time, he tilted his head to the side, avoiding a fatal blow. At the same time, He activated the battle character art. His long hair and eyes instantly turned blood red, and a monstrous battle intent surged out from his entire body. At the same time that she activated the battle character art, the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House's palm landed, brushing past Qin Feiyong's ear and fiercely slapping his shoulder. Crack! Qin Feiyong's entire shoulder instantly shattered, flesh and blood flying everywhere. The excruciating pain caused his face to contort even more. Moreover, the ground below also shattered with a loud bang, causing dust and smoke to rise in all directions. Damn it! When the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House on the left saw this, she was instantly enraged. Bringing along a terrifying Emperor's might, she rushed over. As they approached, without hesitation, she attacked the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House who had ambushed Qin Feiyong with her palm. Tsk tisk. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House laughed sinisterly, and without dodging, she waved her palm. Boom! The two palms met in an instant. A world-destroying aura instantly surged out in all directions like a torrent with the two of them as the center. For a moment, dust flew everywhere. The rumbling sound of the earth collapsing was deafening. In less than 5 breaths of time, the land within a radius of a few hundred miles had turned into a huge sinkhole. Puff! As for the two miss of the Dragon Phoenix House, they were in a stalemate for a moment before spitting out a mouthful of blood and retreating a few hundred feet. Whoa! Suddenly, a violent wind blew in this area. The dust that filled the sky immediately surged into the sky along with the violent wind. Who are you? Following closely, a sinister voice sounded. The two miss of the Dragon Phoenix House turned their heads to look, only to see that half a mile away, Qin Feiyong was half kneeling on the ground with a dusty face, his injured shoulder bleeding profusely. He actually didn't die? The two miss of the Dragon Phoenix House were surprised. You want to kill me? You don't have the ability yet. Qin Feiyong slowly stood up, like an enraged beast. He stared at the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House who had ambushed him, and shouted, Who exactly are you? If he hadn't activated the battle character art in time, he might have really died on the spot. This is... The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House licked her lips, her eyes flashing with a bloodthirsty light. Feiyong, are you all right? The other miss of the Dragon Phoenix House quickly ran to Qin Feiyong's side and asked with concern. I'm fine.